Chapter 903. This battle lasted for 1.5 days. Towards the end, Chu Yang couldn't hold on any longer. Just when he felt that his cultivation was about to be exhausted, the white-robed man suddenly yelled and jumped out of the battle circle. He said angrily, "You're indeed capable. Wait and see." Suddenly, he rose up and circled in the air. Then, he disappeared without a trace. Chu Yang used his long sword to draw 2 more times. Then, he finally stopped. He spun 2 rounds in a daze. Then, he sat down on the ground and gasped for breath. Then, he laughed and said, "That was so satisfying." Although he had been defending more than attacking in this battle, he really fought to his heart's content. He used all his skills and dug out all his potential. After this battle, the soft water sword intent was already infinitely mature, and Chu Yang understood a lot from the comprehension of the Tao state. In fact, Chu Yang was even secretly hoping that this white-robed man would come again and fight like this again. Chu Yang longed for such a battle. This was because his cultivation had increased too quickly. He had reached the 4th stage of the Sword Sovereign realm from the 5th stage of the Martial Emperor realm. The experience he gained during this period was really nothing to write home about. And in this battle, he had been fighting as a 3rd-grade Sword Sovereign. Unknowingly, all his comprehension of the 3rd-grade Sword Sovereign had been integrated in this battle. Moreover, he had a deeper understanding of the power of the Tao state. Chu Yang panted heavily. Wei Wuyan walked over. "How was it?" "Awesome." Chu Yang laughed out loud and said, "This battle was really satisfying. Both my body and mind are very happy." Wei Wuyan said speechlessly, Tao state, Tao state." He suddenly had an idea. "You take a rest and fight with me." Seeing that Chu Yang entered the Tao state in each of the 3 battles, Wei Wuyan suddenly had an idea. Could it be that in this black blood forest, he could enter the Tao state as long as he fought? His heart was itching. Chu Yang was also very interested. He said, "I'll take a rest and fight with you. After a while. Come on." Wei Wuyan was eager to try. "Good. Take this." Chu Yang laughed. After a while, Wei Wuyan was depressed. Because Chu Yang entered the Tao state again, and he didn't. What's going on? Wei Wuyan was puzzled. Again. All right. I'm so depressed. Again. Okay. What happened? You've already gone in 5 times. Why haven't I gone in even once? Wei Wuyan was furious. Again. Sweat. Again. Wei Wuyan gritted his teeth and his eyes turned red. "Sir, please spare me." Chu Yang lay paralyzed on the ground with his 4 limbs facing the sky. His face was pale and his hands and feet were trembling. "I'm so tired. I can't take it anymore." Wei Wuyan didn't give up. Men can't say no. "Get up. Fight me again." Chu Yang's whole body twitched. "A man can't say no to a woman, but you're a man." "I'm really not interested." Wei Wuyan looked up to the sky and sighed. "Why is it so difficult for me to enter the Tao realm once?" Chu Yang said speechlessly, "You're already a half-step supreme martial artist. Tell me, you suppressed your cultivation to fight with me. What kind of comprehension can you have? How can you enter the Tao realm?" Wei Wuyan's whole body trembled, and he was suddenly enlightened. That's right. It must be so. Not only him, but a white figure in the distance also shuddered. That's right. It must be so. Chu Yang lay on the ground and said with endless charm, "It's a pity that the man in white just now can only deal with my 3rd stage Sword Sovereign. If I raise my cultivation to 4th stage, he may not be able to hold on. It's a bit of a pity." Wei Wuyan said disdainfully, "You should be content to be able to enter the Tao realm for a whole day and a half. You still want to use others to continue to break through? You're thinking too much." Chu Yang laughed. In the distant darkness, the white figure moved and muttered to himself, "He can continue to break through." Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. The 3 rested for a long time before they left this messy place. Chu Yang pulled out a water sack and gulped it down with a gudong sound. The sweat from the battle just now almost made Sword Master Chu dehydrated. The 3 of them started their journey from a day ago again. Wei Wuyan was thinking hard as he carried Chu Le on his back. And Chu Yang continued to search for elixirs with his eyes shining brightly. On this day, they walked for 50 miles. It was getting more and more gloomy and dark in front of them. They were about to reach the central area. Little thief, give me back my red fruit tree. A white figure descended from the sky and slapped towards Chu Yang fiercely. Chu Yang was already prepared. Good. He raised his sword to meet the attack, and the two instantly got into a fight. This time, the cultivation of the man in white seemed to have improved greatly. He actually faintly reached the second or third stage martial monarch level, making Chu Yang, who was a third stage sword sovereign, unable to breathe. Chu Yang made up his mind and raised his cultivation by one level in an instant. Sword light shot out like a bolt of lightning. Fourth stage sword sovereign. The man in white seemed a little excited. You've also improved. Chu Yang sneered. Why, can't I? So what if you've improved? You'll still die in my hands. The man in white sneered. Not necessarily. Chu Yang raised his cultivation to the fourth stage sword sovereign level, and the sound of raging waves had already begun to surge like wind and thunder. Let's see who'll die in whose hands. The man in white didn't speak anymore, and only intensified his attacks. Chu Yang was fully focused, and he countered the man's moves as they came. The man in white's moves were extremely slippery, and he couldn't grasp them at all. At first, Chu Yang thought that it would be a pity if he killed the man in white, but gradually, he forgot everything and was fully immersed in the battle. Wei Wuyan, who was at the side, pulled his hair and sighed. Dao state. Dao state again. He's in it again. There was another person who was equally depressed, the man in white. The man in white looked at Chu Yang's long breaths and the mysterious Dao state aura emitted from his body. He was also furious. Why is it so easy for him to enter the Dao state? He increased the speed of his attacks, but Chu Yang also increased the intensity of his sword light. From the beginning to the end, yesterday's battle was repeated again, 70%. It was still 70%. It was so accurate that there wasn't any change in the slightest. Chu Yang used 30% of his attacks, while the man in white used 70%. The man in white was still suppressing Chu Yang in the battle. Moreover, in the middle of the battle, the man in white actually closed his eyes, and fought with Chu Yang, who was in the Dao state, purely based on his senses. Moreover, if someone could see through his disguise, he would discover that the expression on his face seemed to be in deep thought. Such an expression was no different from Wei Wuyan's expression at the side. This battle lasted for another day and night. In the end, Chu Yang was already sweating profusely. He couldn't help but want to raise his cultivation to the level of a fifth stage sword sovereign to continue the battle. At this moment, the man in white laughed. Let's fight again tomorrow. I won't let you have an easy time tomorrow. His figure rose, and a white figure flashed. Like a whirlwind, he disappeared without a trace. Chu Yang was panting heavily, but a strange feeling suddenly arose in his heart. What's the intention of this man in white? Why does his fighting style seem to be purely helping me to stabilize my cultivation and comprehend sword techniques? Is this person really so kind? But if not, why is he doing this? Chu Yang pondered, but he quickly threw this question to the back of his mind. No matter what his motive is, he won't disappear. He'll come again tomorrow. No matter what, he'll say it in the end. And such a battle is infinitely beneficial to me. What's wrong with fighting a few more times? Currently, the most important thing is to find elixirs. The more elixirs I have, the more confident I'll be when I walk out of this black blood forest. It's possible for the sword spirit to steal elixirs, but in the big clans that know the Tribulation Sword Master very well, it's hard to guarantee that he won't be recognized or suspected. Even if there's only a little bit of suspicion, his concealment will become completely meaningless. Therefore, it's better to search for elixirs in a blessed place like the Black Blood Forest. Therefore, after this battle, not only did Sword Master Chu's search for elixirs not slow down, but it became even crazier. From a radius of 100 miles to a radius of 500 miles, and other than the central area in front, it seemed to be expanding towards a radius of 1,000 miles. Such a terrifying sweep made all the experts in the Black Blood Forest shed tears. Too ruthless. He's directly scraping the ground. Besides, brother, it's fine even if you only collect the top-grade elixirs, but this master doesn't even let off the elixirs that are 8 to 10 years old. The more you scoop into the basket, the better. This made them even more speechless. Do you want us to live or not? Damn it, if we get injured in the future, we won't even be able to find any medicine in the black blood forest. But there were orders from the higher-ups that they weren't allowed to deal with this brat. They were to let him pass quietly. Therefore, everyone could only stare and swallow their saliva as they watched. Wow! Chu Yang finally couldn't help but let out a surprised cry. This cry made the hearts of all the experts in the black blood forest twitch. Another treasure has been found. And it's definitely a good treasure. This brat has been spoiled by the black blood forest during this period of time. Ordinary treasures can't even surprise him anymore. In a dark place, Chu Yang found a small milky white tip. This milky white tip made Chu Yang overjoyed at the unexpected good news. Because he recognized this thing. Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng. After discovering this thing, even the sword spirit in the tribulation space did 2 somersaults to express his excitement. This was the black blood forest. The ground was so hard, and this Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng grew in the black blood forest and was actually white. How many years did it take to grow? At the very least, it wouldn't grow to this size in 3,000 to 5,000 years. And 3,000 to 5,000 years in the black blood forest. It couldn't be compared to the outside world. Such a thing was definitely something that one could only come across by chance in the entire heavenly layer. Even with Chu Yang's composure, his heart couldn't help but beat violently. Then, he walked over carefully and carefully. Second update. Begging everyone for monthly votes. Monthly votes are RRR. Chapter 904. I've made a mistake in the previous chapter. Chu Yang should be from Martial King to 4th grade Sword Sovereign. I've written from Martial Emperor to Martial Emperor. Thanks to reincarnation for your reminder. Chu Yang faintly felt that there seemed to be quite a number of people around him watching his actions. But strangely, no one came out to stop him. Chu Yang kept his guard up and started to dig carefully. Under the sword spirit's reminder, he used a wisp of sword energy as a rope to tie the milky white tip of the Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng. The sword spirit faintly felt that this Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng already had spirituality. Within a radius of 200 miles of this Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng, there were no other elixirs. In a place like the Black Blood Forest, this Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng could actually monopolize the underground spiritual energy within a radius of 200 miles. This showed how strong its medicinal effects were. Such a heavenly treasure definitely had spirituality, so, after Chu Yang wrapped the sword energy around it, he clearly felt that this Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng trembled a little. As if it wanted to break free. But because of the entanglement of the sword energy, it felt a piercing pain. So, it stopped moving after that. As if it had already accepted its fate. A drop of dew quietly rolled out from the milky white tip of the Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng. As if it had sensed that its life was coming to an end, it was crying. A despairing atmosphere suddenly pervaded this place, and even made Chu Yang's heart feel distressed. "Don't worry, I won't hurt you," Chu Yang said in a low voice with his divine sense. "I have more suitable land and spiritual energy for you to grow here. You won't regret following me." The Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng stopped moving. But the surrounding atmosphere was still gloomy, as if it had no choice but to accept its fate. Chu Yang smiled in his heart. "Little thing, you'll only be surprised later." This thing indeed had spirituality. No wonder it wasn't discovered by anyone. And it even stealthily stole the Earth's spiritual energy within a radius of 200 miles. Chu Yang started to dig carefully. He started to dig a hole 10 feet away from the perimeter. He dug all the way down to a depth of 50 feet before he started to lift it up slowly from the bottom. During this process, Chu Yang seemed to have heard a slight sound. But, when he looked around, he didn't find anything. So, he didn't care about it, and continued with his work. A few hundred feet away, a few experts from the Black Blood Forest trembled as they looked at the corpse in front of them. They simultaneously knelt on the ground and kowtowed repeatedly. These people were finally tempted when Chu Yang discovered this Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng just now. This was a unique treasure in the world. The person who was lying on the ground was the strongest among them. He was an 8th grade martial saint. They were also one of the overlords of the Black Blood Forest. When he saw that Chu Yang had found the Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng, he had already soared up, and was about to fly out to snatch it. His idea was very simple: I won't hurt him. I just want this Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng. Take it and run. However, just as his body rose into the air, a fine white light suddenly shot over and nailed this 8th grade martial saint to the ground. Without a sound. When everyone went forward to take a look, they saw that a fine white cloth had been inserted into the temple of this 8th grade martial saint. It went in from the left temple and came out from the right temple. There were no bloodstains on either side. The white cloth was as white as before. After checking his injuries, they realized that his entire head had already turned into tofu dregs, and his dantian had been shattered. This white cloth actually released 2 forces, which destroyed this person's divine sense, vitality, and cultivation at the same time. A dignified 8th grade martial saint expert, under such a thin white cloth that couldn't even strangle a mouse to death, didn't even have the chance to let out a final groan before his soul was scattered. In fact, such a way of dying was the purest way of dying. If reincarnation really existed in the world, then this person wouldn't be able to go to the reincarnation passe. He was completely dead. Everyone felt as if they were struck by lightning. A soft voice was transmitted into everyone's ears. No one listens to what I say anymore. This really makes me feel a little sad. This sentence was indifferent and didn't show any emotions. It didn't even appear in the air, but directly entered everyone's ears. However, all the experts present immediately knelt down on the ground and kowtowed while trembling all over. They didn't even dare to beg for mercy. That voice transmitted again indifferently. If something like this happens again, this area will be destroyed. Everyone kowtowed while trembling all over. Sweat poured down like rain. Destruction. These 2 words sounded very hard to understand, but only the experts in the Black Blood Forest knew. This Black Blood Forest was divided into several areas by the Lord. Every area has a person in charge. He's called the Area Master. The one who died just now was the Area Master of this area, Lord. The meaning of Area Master was, if something like this happens again, there won't be a single living person in this area. This was a complete case of implicating people. For example, if one person in this country committed a crime, then everyone in this country should be killed. Yes, that was the meaning. This was no longer just brutal, it had far exceeded the scope of brutal. The voice disappeared without a trace. It seemed that the person had left. However, the experts present seemed to hate their parents for not giving birth to them with 2 more legs. They crawled up from the ground and disappeared without a trace. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They didn't even dare to turn back. Damn it, the Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng was good, but, no matter how good it was, could it be better than their own lives? At this moment, even if a heavenly-level miracle medicine appeared in front of them, these people definitely didn't dare to turn back. When all was silent, a white figure murmured from afar, "Such good fortune. I've been here for tens of thousands of years and I've never seen it." He saw it the moment he came. It's really rare, but isn't it? Isn't it? Isn't it? He actually said "isn't it?" continuously for dozens of times. His face revealed sincere nostalgia, and his eyes were filled with sorrow as if tears were about to fall from them. Then, a long sigh sounded, and this white figure finally disappeared in a flash. Chu Yang had just taken out the Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng from the ground. Thanks to the hardness and sharpness of the Tribulation Sword, he didn't have to spend too much effort. The soil on the Jade Snow Spirit Ginseng hadn't been removed, and it was still a lump of soil about 10 feet in radius. At this moment, Chu Yang heard that sigh. Chu Yang suddenly felt bitter in his heart. All the sadness and helplessness from his previous life surged into his heart at once. It was as if he saw Mo Qingwu dying in his arms. Suddenly, he felt completely disheartened. His heart ached so much that he almost wanted to cut himself with his sword. Tears streamed down his face. In the tribulation space, the sword spirit roared, "Wake up." Chu Yang's heart shook, and he finally woke up from that sorrowful mood. However, he realized that his face was already covered in tears. What's going on? Chu Yang clearly remembered the mood just now and couldn't help but be shocked. That long sigh was still immersed in his mind for a long time. It was a kind of deep-rooted yearning, a love and deep attachment that couldn't be obtained even after the end of the world. This kind of feeling could almost make the heavens cry at the same time, but when Chu Yang asked this question, even the sword spirit who had just woken him up didn't answer. Sword spirit, what's going on? Chu Yang asked in his mind. I don't know, the sword spirit answered and went silent again. Chu Yang made a sound of agreement. After a long time, he collected his thoughts and focused on handling the jade snow spirit ginseng in front of him. Bit by bit, he peeled off the black soil that was as hard as steel from the jade snow spirit ginseng. This jade snow spirit ginseng's body was covered with long snow-white whiskers, each of which was nearly 10 feet long. As the black soil was peeled off, the appearance of this jade snow spirit ginseng was gradually revealed. The body of this jade snow spirit ginseng was only the size of a palm. Its whole body was snow-white, and there was actually a faint trace of blood that was almost undetectable. It was just like human skin. Moreover, there was a faint brilliance flowing inside, just like the meridians of the human body. It had hands and feet, a nose and eyes, just like a baby that had just taken shape. On its head, there was a small milky white protrusion that was sharp, that was its branch. It was this little bit that allowed Chu Yang to discover it. Now, this little guy's facial features were wrinkled, as if it was wronged and scared. Still scared? Chu Yang smiled and said, Sword spirit, catch. Then, he sent it into the tribulation space. The sword spirit caught it inside. He looked at it and couldn't bear to put it down. It's really this thing. It's really the most precious treasure in the world. He actually flicked the nose of this jade snow spirit ginseng and said, You actually dare to throw a tantrum. Since you're here, you have to behave yourself, understand? This little jade snow spirit ginseng's nose seemed to wrinkle even more tightly. Little thing. You actually ignored me. The sword spirit scolded and planted it beside the vitality spring water. He dug a deep hole and gently buried the jade snow spirit ginseng in the soil without any wrinkles. But he left the jade snow spirit ginseng's little head on the ground. Then, he scooped a spoonful of vitality spring water and poured it over it. Feeling the rich vitality of the vitality spring water, the jade snow spirit ginseng suddenly trembled. Then, the wrinkles on its face slowly smoothed out, and it seemed to be enjoying it. Seeing that the sword spirit only poured a spoonful of vitality spring water and then stopped, the little mouth on its face eagerly opened. It seemed to be begging, give me a little more, so greedy. The sword spirit scooped another spoonful of vitality spring water for it and said, Little guy, you have to remember that you can use the vitality spring water, but you have to stimulate the growth of the vitality spring water. If you dare to use it all up, I'll cut you up and throw you into the vitality spring water. Do you understand? The little tip on the jade snow spirit ginseng's little head bent slightly, as if it was nodding. It was very obedient. Then, its thin and dense roots automatically melted into the soil beside the vitality spring water. Its face revealed an extremely comfortable expression, as if it was enjoying it. Even its two arms stretched out from the soil and then fell back down. It was as if a person had suddenly arrived at a place that made him feel extremely comfortable and was cheering. Or, he was lazily stretching his waist and saying, This place is too comfortable. Chapter 1. I'll continue to write the 4th chapter. Chapter 905. Chu Yang was walking back, and the jade snow spirit ginseng was at home. But the sword spirit was frowning and thinking deeply. He was thinking about the sigh that Chu Yang heard just now. Who was that? Who could be so powerful? Who could it be? Who could be so powerful? The sword spirit had accompanied the previous tribulation sword master for a long time on this continent. It could be said that as long as it was in the heavens, the sword spirit would know. As long as it was in the heavens, the sword spirit would know. As long as it was in the legends of the heavens, the sword spirit would know. But the sword spirit couldn't tell what kind of power was contained in this sigh. He didn't know what kind of technique was used by the person who let out the sigh. He could only instinctively feel that this person was powerful and terrifying. If there was a person who could make the sword spirit feel terrified, then who was this person? Chu Yang had thought about this question before. But the sword spirit's answer was, in this heavens, there definitely wouldn't be such a person. If the sword spirit was in his prime, he wouldn't be afraid even if he faced supreme martial artist Chen Feng and supreme martial artist Liu Yun at the same time. However, this sigh made the sword spirit feel fearful and powerful. After keeping the jade snow spirit ginseng, there were no more elixirs within a radius of 200 miles. Sword Master Chu's speed finally increased. It was getting darker and darker in front. Finally, it was so dark that he couldn't even see his own fingers. Until now, he had already traveled 1,750 miles. He had arrived at the heart of this place. There were no more people hiding in the dark nearby. There wasn't even a bug or snake on the ground. There wasn't even a bird in the sky. Other than the dark forest and darkland, it was like a silent death zone. There was no sound at all. Cha, only the withered tree under their feet made a soft sound. Everything was silent. The two of them felt as if they had fallen into a nightmare at the same time. This silence was terrifying. And fighting in such an environment was even more terrifying. Divine senses were blocked and eyes couldn't see. How could they fight? Or could they only rely on their instincts? Chu Yang's heart was beating like a drum when the white shadow appeared in front of him again. This time, it was floating quietly in the air. It didn't immediately start the battle. Instead, it asked softly, "Young man, what's your name?" Chu Yang said lightly, "My name is Chu Yang." Chu Yang. Chu Yang. The white shadow chuckled, "So your surname is Chu." After a moment of silence, he said, "Come, fight me again." Suddenly, it rushed down with a whoosh. "Wait!" Chu Yang shouted. However, the other party didn't allow any explanation and directly rushed down. Although the attack this time was in the land of darkness, it was twice as fierce as the previous attack. Chu Yang felt that he couldn't breathe as soon as he started to fight. So, he let out a loud roar, and unleashed his cultivation as a fifth-stage sword sovereign. The two of them fought fiercely in this dark place. However, Chu Yang clearly felt that the opponent's attack wasn't as gentle as the previous attacks. Instead, it was as powerful as a thunderbolt. It was like a bolt of lightning striking down from the heavens, smashing a person into pieces with a single strike. This was a violent attack that was full of confidence in winning. Such confidence could only be obtained through continuous victories in a long battle. Chu Yang had already used all his power as a fifth-stage sword sovereign. Except for the tribulation sword technique, all the other martial arts that he knew, including footwork, movement, sword, saber, and so on, were unleashed together like a storm. However, he still couldn't resist the opponent's attack. Chu Yang retreated step by step. The opponent's attack became more and more violent. Suddenly, a rumbling sound was heard, and the opponent's attack connected together at this moment. Chu Yang could faintly feel that the opponent's attack was like the tide of the sea, pressing down on him, raging waves, and he himself was like a small boat in the raging waves of the sea, which could capsize at any time. The infinite aura of death shrouded Chu Yang in an instant. If he couldn't resist it, he would be smashed into pieces in the next moment. From the darkness, Chu Yang could tell from the cold eyes of the man in white that he wouldn't show any mercy. However, Chu Yang had a strange association at this moment. The moves of the man in white were so familiar. It wasn't the moves that were familiar, but the artistic conception. He retreated continuously and tried his best to think. Finally, an idea flashed across his mind. This was the artistic conception of water, continuous and endless, connecting heaven and earth, vast and endless, with endless power. This was, Chu Yang roared, "This is the force of raging waves." With this roar, Chu Yang finally figured out what he couldn't figure out all this while. His wrist shook, and sword light and sword radiance shot out. At this moment, Chu Yang actually turned defense into offense in an absolutely disadvantageous situation. The originally continuous and dense sword light was like a sudden eruption of a mountain torrent at this moment. With a power that could destroy heaven and earth, the sword light rushed out violently. Just his sword light alone was enough to illuminate the entire area at this moment. The sword aura shot out horizontally and vertically. Chu Yang suddenly felt very comfortable in his attack. He couldn't help but roar, So the force of water can also be used like this. Ha ha ha. As he laughed, the sword light became more and more intense, and he fought back crazily. Wei Wuyan was shocked. He brought Chula and retreated rapidly. They only stopped when they were 200 feet away. The sharpness of the sword aura that Chu Yang emitted at this moment made him feel that he couldn't protect Chula from getting hurt if he took another step closer. This gave Wei Wuyan a huge shock. What was his cultivation? What was Chu Yang's cultivation? Why did he have such a feeling? Looking from afar, Chu Yang's sword light flowed like a river, illuminating the dark black blood forest as if it was daytime. Chu Yang, who was dressed in black, seemed to be standing in a huge light circle. He waved his sword and attacked continuously. The opponent's cultivation was obviously much higher than Chu Yang's. But at this moment, Chu Yang was standing in this light circle of sword light, not moving an inch. He was like a god of war who would never be defeated, standing proudly at this moment. Fighting proudly. You can kill me, but I can only move forward in front of you. But I won't take another step back. This was also a kind of aura. The pride of this kind of aura was even above the white-robed man's aura of victory. Because this was the determination to throw life and death to the back of his mind. Regardless of life or death, victory or defeat, his pride wouldn't change. The soft water sword intent was fully unleashed. And it seemed to be developing further and deeper. This was the enlightenment that Chu Yang had gained from the strong pressure these few days. The soft water sword intent could only be used for defense. Only when one's defense was impenetrable could one borrow force to attack. It was enough to protect oneself, but not enough to attack. But the opponent's continuous attacks made Chu Yang ponder about the next step of the soft water sword intent in his Dao state. It wasn't until the white-robed man's attack came crashing down that Chu Yang was suddenly enlightened, as if he was suddenly enlightened. The power of water wasn't just the power of soft water. Water wasn't just soft. It was also unyielding and violent. It could also destroy everything, including the entire heavens. Everyone said that fire and water were merciless. But the fury of water was far more violent than fire, and its destructive power was much stronger. The power of soft water could naturally receive attacks calmly. But what would happen when the gentle water flow encountered a high mountain or a canyon? What would happen if he were to rush down from 1,000 feet high cliff? This was the power that Chu Yang suddenly comprehended, the power of violent waves. The sword light shot out like lightning, and the sword light surged crazily. Chu Yang comprehended the power of violent waves, and the cultivation in his body was also flowing happily. The vital energy of heaven and earth in his meridians was also rising. In his dantian, the 4 fragments of the tribulation sword also seemed to be cheering, but Chu Yang's cultivation was no longer able to support such a huge consumption. The sword spirit in the tribulation space was constantly refining elixirs, turning the power of the elixirs into vital energy, and continuously channeling it into Chu Yang's meridians. With the violent vital energy circulating in his body, it returned to his dantian and became Chu Yang's own power. Good sword. What a fast comprehension. What a smart young man. What a high aptitude. The sword light was like lightning, and the white-robed man's eyes seemed to have become 2 purple gems, constantly flashing and attacking. However, he was sincerely praising her. Chu Yang had already entered the Dao state of selflessness. His current thoughts were only to attack. Attack. Attack again. As long as he was alive, he would not stop attacking. Both of them were attacking. A white shadow and a black shadow attacked each other in the rainbow-like sword light. Neither of them took a step back. Both of them took up half of each other's attacks. It was a 50-50ths ratio. If you attack me, I'll attack you back. No one took advantage of each other, but Chu Yang's sword state was becoming more and more violent. He didn't even think about what sword force to use. He only knew to attack according to his own feelings. Attacking continuously seemed to have become the instinct of this tribulation sword master. Other than this, there was no other way that he could accept. As Chu Yang's cultivation increased like bamboo shoots after the rain, the cultivation of the white-robed man opposite him was also increasing. It seemed that no matter how high Chu Yang's cultivation level was, he would be able to cooperate with him and would never be at a disadvantage. Wei Wuyan, who was at the side, was already extremely shocked at this moment. Because he clearly felt that Chu Yang's aura in this battle was getting stronger and stronger, fiercer and fiercer. Other people would be consumed in battle, but Chu Yang was enriching himself as he fought. Why was this happening? Wei Wuyan could feel that Chu Yang's 5th stage sword sovereign realm from the beginning of the battle was increasing rapidly. Then, he started to accumulate slowly, and now, he was climbing to the peak step by step. It was like a taut string. As long as it broke, it would be a kind of nirvanic rebirth breakthrough. In the battle circle, Chu Yang suddenly roared, "Break tilde tilde." A loud and clear sword sound suddenly appeared. It was clear and bright. Sword light rose up fiercely, and everything within a radius of a few hundred feet could be seen. The white-robed man let out a long roar and retreated lightly. He shouted, 4 hours to break through to the sword sovereign realm? Not bad. Chapter 906. Wei Wuyan was shocked to the point of numbness. The cultivation of the white-robed man was obviously much higher than Chu Yang's. He had been suppressing his cultivation to fight with Chu Yang. Wei Wuyan could naturally see this. So, he didn't feel strange about how the white-robed man's cultivation improved. But Chu Yang was a genuine 5th stage sword sovereign. Just 4 hours ago, he was only a 5th stage sword sovereign. And 4 hours later, he reached the 1st stage of sword sovereign. 4 hours. From nothing to something, from the beginning to the end, from a trickling river to a raging wave, he broke through the dam. Only 4 hours. And it was a breakthrough in battle. Wei Wuyan stood there in a daze. He felt that the martial arts principles that he had learned before were completely subverted at this moment. His teacher said, "Martial arts can't be achieved quickly. Cultivation depends on accumulation. And all of this required time." Wei Wuyan had always believed in this point. But now he knew, martial arts can be achieved quickly. Cultivation can also be achieved quickly. Looking at Chu Yang in front of him, wasn't he an obvious example? Wei Wuyan recalled that just 10 days ago, Chu Yang was still a 4th stage sword sovereign. He felt even more dizzy. After a long while, he realized that he was moaning, "Motherfucker. What the hell is going on?" After Chu Yang broke through, his fighting spirit was high. But the white-robed man suddenly jumped out of the battle circle and ended the battle. This made him feel really unsatisfied. It was as if there was a breath in his chest that was about to explode, but he couldn't spit it out no matter what. He closed his eyes and took a few breaths to suppress the urge to fight in his heart. Only then did he realize that his meridians were full of primordial chi, as if they were about to explode. Hearing the white-robed man's words, Chu Yang knew that today's battle had come to an end. He took a few deep breaths and suppressed his fighting spirit with great difficulty. He calmed his breathing and said proudly, "Is it very fast to break through 1 stage in 4 hours? You haven't seen anyone faster than that." The white-robed man seemed to be startled. He smiled faintly and said, "Have you ever been faster?" Chu Yang smiled mischievously. He stretched out 5 fingers and said lightly, "This young master once broke through 5 levels in 2 hours. He was telling the truth. In fact, it was absolutely true. If Chu Yang still couldn't figure out who this person was after this period of fighting, then he would really be a blockhead. If he still couldn't figure out this person's intention and goal, then he really should just cut his own throat. This white-robed man was definitely the one that Wei Wuyan mentioned, the king of the entire Black Blood Forest, the absolute overlord. Chu Yang was absolutely certain about this conjecture of his. In the entire Black Blood Forest, he was the only one who could wear white clothes. In the entire Black Blood Forest, there was only this person who could allow them to pass through unimpeded with just 1 sentence. This kind of power, this kind of prestige, only this person could achieve. As for his purpose, Chu Yang could also guess it. Because ever since the 2 battles when he first entered the Black Blood Forest, he didn't fight again. That night, it was Wei Wuyan who fought. Furthermore, the reason must be because of him. Otherwise, he would have fought with Wei Wuyan instead of him. Since the reason was because of him, then it must be because of him in those 2 battles. The only abnormality in these 2 battles was that he had easily entered the Dao state. To be able to attract such a powerful person and make such a powerful person concede unconsciously, allowing him to pass through unimpeded. This was the only reason. Furthermore, it was precisely because of this that this white-robed man repeatedly sought him out for a battle. Every time, the white-robed man grasped the timing very accurately. He made Chu Yang try his best but was always at a disadvantage. Chu Yang was 100% sure that this white-robed man was doing this for the sake of the Tao state. Therefore, Chu Yang said proudly, "I've broken through 4 or 5 stages consecutively before." In this case, this wasn't arrogance, nor was it conceited, but Chu Yang wanted to further raise his bargaining chip. Only by raising his own level to a certain level could he talk to the white-robed man as an equal. Otherwise, no matter how talented you were, if you didn't have a higher bargaining chip, the white-robed man could kill or force you to do as he wished. Indeed, after Chu Yang said this, the white-robed man seemed to smile lightly and said, "You really broke through to the 5th stage in 2 hours previously?" Chu Yang said proudly, "Of course. In front of an expert like you, do you think I'll lie to you?" The white-robed man nodded and smiled. "Good, good, good. This is really very good." The atmosphere instantly became peaceful, and Chu Yang was also slightly relieved. In the face of such a powerful person, and a temperamental one at that, he really had to be careful at every step. Every word had to be carefully considered. It was very difficult. The next moment, the white-robed man said, "How does it feel to break through 5 stages in one go?" "Awesome," Chu Yang said without hesitation, and a smile of reminiscence appeared on his face. Thinking of the shocked looks of Jiu Duxing, Ji Mo, and the others every time he broke through, his smile became especially warm and nostalgic. "Awesome." The white-robed man laughed. "Then do you want to feel awesome again? Whoever doesn't want to is a fool." "Ah!" Chu Yang blurted out. Halfway through his words, he suddenly paused and said in shock, "What do you want to do?" "I want to see you break through once," the white-robed man said gently, "otherwise, I'll think that you're lying to me." Suddenly, he opened his hands, and the entire black blood forest instantly turned dark. "If you don't break through, you'll die here," the white-robed man shouted coldly and rose up. It was as if the clouds in the sky suddenly poured down in torrent. Everywhere it went, there was only destruction. The pressure this time was 10 times that of the previous battle. If the white-robed man used the power of a 3rd-stage monarch in the previous battle, the attack this time was definitely at the level of a 3rd-stage monarch, or even beyond that. Chu Yang turned pale with fright. Sword Master Chu definitely didn't expect that this man would be so capricious even though he obviously had a request for him. The previous moment, it was still calm, and the next moment, it was earth-shattering. The change was so sudden that Chu Yang was completely caught off guard. This even directly broke Sword Master Chu's understanding of human nature to a certain extent. This time, he definitely didn't hold back at all. No matter if it was his killing intent, aura, spirit, consciousness, aura, everything was filled with firm killing intent. Just like what the white-robed man said, if you want to survive this move of mine, you must break through. And you must break through at the last moment. If you don't break through, you'll die. Chu Yang roared and mobilized all his cultivation, but he still couldn't resist. The white-robed man's earth-shattering attack was about to reach him. At this moment, in the tribulation space, the sword spirit also roared angrily and threw away all his scruples. His 2 hands instantly danced in the tribulation space, making whooshing sounds. In an instant, he used all his strength to convert all the medicinal power that he could mobilize into pure spiritual energy and poured it into Chu Yang's meridians without reservation. He didn't even consider whether Chu Yang could accept it or not. But now, this was the only way. If he didn't do this, Chu Yang would be crushed under this move. In this way, there was still some hope of surviving the opponent's attack. Although he would definitely be seriously injured, as long as the white-robed man didn't pursue him, the sword spirit was confident that he could save Chu Yang again. Even if he died on the spot, he was confident that he could bring Chu Yang back to life. However, just as Chu Yang was mobilizing all his cultivation and potential, and the sword spirit was also converting all the medicinal power into spiritual energy and pouring it into Chu Yang's meridians, the white-robed man suddenly laughed and retreated. "Little brother, don't be nervous. I'm just joking with you. Fuck. Chu Yang immediately went crazy and collapsed to the extreme. He used all of his strength to curse in a thunderous manner. He first cursed out the first word. Then, he gritted his teeth and cursed out the last 3 words with boundless grief and indignation. You bastard. Chu Yang's face instantly distorted. At this moment, it was no longer a matter of cursing. If the 18 generations of this white-robed man's ancestors were in front of Chu Yang, Sword Master Chu would definitely go crazy and kill all of them, regardless of whether they were male or female. This was too much. Chu Yang couldn't help but break down. Because he was already like an arrow on the bow. All his cultivation had been mobilized and the medicinal power of the sword spirit was in place. It was equivalent to accumulating power in his meridians that was equivalent to more than 10 times his current cultivation. He only needed to wait for the white-robed man's attack to come and then he would fight back crazily. With the help of this violent collision, he would vent out this huge power and make use of the recoil to reduce this part of the damage so that he could retreat and protect himself. This was also the only way to save his life in the situation just now. Other than that, there was only death. Who would have thought that just as he was about to explode, the white-robed man suddenly disappeared without a trace and even said, "Don't be nervous, I'm just joking with you." This was really something that he didn't expect even in his dreams. Wasn't this a scam? Moreover, when Chu Yang wanted to find a random target to vent his power on, he realized that everything around him had become a black hole, and it was a black hole that was expanding outwards. He actually didn't have any target to vent his power on. Even when he vented his power on the ground, he realized that it was as if the ground had lost half of its power. He couldn't vent it out. He could only hold it in his body. Chu Yang was instantly stunned. For example, it was like a volcanic eruption that connected the magma of several earth veins and was about to erupt from here. When it was about to rush out of the ground, it realized that it couldn't. That was definitely a spectacular scene comparable to dozens of nuclear bombs exploding at the same time. Thinking about the consequences, one would know how miserable young Master Chu was now. Damn you. Damn you. You've really screwed me over. You've really screwed me over. Chu Yang didn't know what to say anymore. Feeling that his body was rapidly swelling and about to explode, Chu Yang wanted to cry but had no tears. He never thought that as the master of the Calamity Sword, not only did he not die in the hands of the enemy, but he actually played himself to death. Damn it, even if he died, he really didn't have the face to face any ghosts in the netherworld. It was pardonable if he died from eating too much. But for him to die from eating too much, it was definitely a joke. Severe insomnia, extremely excited. After lying down and getting up again, he tossed about for 7 or 8 hours and decided to just write. I'll drink some wine in the afternoon and let myself sleep early. So today I'll try to update as early as possible. If I don't sleep, I'm afraid I'll really give my life to the number 1 monthly votes. Chapter 907. The sword spirit in the tribulation space was also stunned. He tried his best to convert the medicinal efficacy stored in Chu Yang's meridians and the medicinal efficacy that he had extracted into spiritual energy and sent it over. It even included the power of some existing elixirs. This was already the maximum power that the sword spirit could extract. How exaggerated was the sword spirit's refining ability? How shocking was his ability? With the convenience of a spirit body, and with a speed that was unprecedented in 10,000 years, he went all out to extract the medicinal efficacy. How terrifyingly fast and effective was it? One could totally imagine how terrifying the spiritual energy that the sword spirit sent out this time was. But at this moment, the sword spirit stopped. Once the medicinal efficacy was converted into spiritual energy, the sword spirit couldn't extract it back even if he wanted to. Only a huge amount of spiritual energy was left in Chu Yang's meridians. At this moment, the sword spirit was also stunned. Damn it, why did it stop at this time? The spiritual energy had already been instilled into Chu Yang's meridians. It definitely couldn't be sent into Chu Yang's meridians in the shortest time possible. What should I do? Could it be that a tribulation sword master would actually die because his own sword spirit was stuffed to death? This is going to be a joke, but at this moment, there was really nothing that he could do. If the sword spirit had a body, He could help Chu Yang from the outside. But he didn't. If he asked Wei Wuyan for help, he would reveal the secret of the Tribulation Sword Master. The Sword Spirit and Chu Yang were both helpless. If there's really no other way, it seems that we can only ask Wei Wuyan for help. If the secret is revealed, then so be it. But I'm afraid, even Wei Wuyan can't withstand this power now. The possibility of Wei Wuyan exploding together with the power is infinitely close to 100%. These should be enough for you to feel good again, right? The man in white stood in the air and looked at Chu Yang. He said lightly, "Quick, break through 5 stages in 2 hours. Show me." "You." Chu Yang almost vomited blood. "You're doing this just for this?" The man in white said, "Isn't this what you said?" Chu Yang was speechless. That was before. How can breaking through 5 stages in 2 hours as a martial artist be compared to breaking through 5 stages in 2 hours as a sword sovereign? 1 stage of sword sovereign is enough for 1,000 people to break through to martial artist at the same time. The man in white said indifferently, "What does it matter? When you were a martial artist, your meridians were able to withstand the yuan qi of breaking through 5 levels. Then, when you were a sword emperor, you would also be able to withstand the yuan qi of breaking through 5 levels. It's the same in the first place. The level of knowledge is different, that's all." Chu Yang's body had already started to swell. His face and neck had turned red as he panted, "You're talking nonsense. Why don't you try? According to what you said, your current body should be able to withstand the power of breaking through 5 levels at the same time. Why don't you try breaking through yourself? It's easier said than done." The man in white said faintly, "I would like to. But in this world, where would there be enough spiritual energy for me to absorb 5 levels at once?" As he spoke, he actually felt a little melancholy and sighed. Chu Yang said angrily, "Stop sighing. I'm about to explode. You scammer. Hurry up and think of a way. Fuck, you can't just leave me like this. Let me tell you, the power of the Tao realm will be gone once I explode." In the tribulation space, the sword spirit was so anxious that he stomped his feet. "Young master, you're still threatening him. Will you die if you say a few soft words?" Although he couldn't see the expression of the man in white, Chu Yang could feel that the other party seemed to be frowning. Then, he asked in puzzlement, "Don't you have a way to solve this situation? What a great opportunity this is." Chu Yang was so anxious that he didn't notice that when the man in white spoke, he said "you all" instead of "you." He said angrily, "In this situation, the only solution is to have a head-on collision with you and then vent this power and recover my original cultivation. Although I'll suffer serious internal injuries, they won't be fatal. That's the only way." "Nonsense." The man in white said angrily, "I spent so much effort to dig out all of your potential, dug out all of your hidden medicinal power, and then used a great divine ability to hide heaven and earth, leaving you with nowhere to vent. I created such a rare opportunity for you, and you actually want to vent it just like that? Waste it. A great opportunity for me?" Chu Yang held his head that was about to explode. He groaned, "Is it an opportunity for me to explode?" At this moment, the white-robed man floated from the void in front of Chu Yang like an illusion. He said faintly and somewhat impatiently, "Can't you suppress your blood and qi with your dantian and spit it out once with your fighting spirit?" Chu Yang resisted the feeling of his meridians bursting. He gritted his teeth and said, "When my fighting spirit rises, my blood and qi will naturally boil. How can I use the rising fighting spirit to suppress my blood and qi? As for the dantian, there's no need to talk about it. With the dantian swallowing and spitting, the meridians in the body will flow in reverse. At such a critical moment, there's no hope at all. Besides, even if the meridians flow in reverse after the dantian swallows and spits, the dantian will still explode from bearing such a huge force." Sword Master Chu himself felt that it was a little unbelievable that he actually had the mood to discuss such an important martial art problem with the man in white at such an uncomfortable moment. The man in white said angrily, "Idiot. The human dantian is a treasure given by heaven and earth. How can it explode so easily? The swallowing and spitting of the dantian is a cultivation method. How can the meridians flow in reverse? The swallowing and spitting of the dantian actually needs the meridians to flow in reverse. What kind of nonsense has this continent taught us? Even though Chu Yang was already on the verge of collapse from the discomfort, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded when he heard this. What kind of logic has this continent taught us? Are you not? Are you not from this continent? The man in white snorted coldly and said angrily, "How can this continent tolerate me?" When this sentence came out, Chu Yang only felt a shock in his heart. There was actually a slight pause in his brain and a brief moment of clarity. That was a kind of clarity that almost made the world collapse. How can this continent tolerate me? What kind of arrogance and disdain was this? Extremely shocked, Chu Yang gritted his teeth and asked, "But, how can the fighting spirit and blood be suppressed?" The man in white snorted coldly. "The fighting spirit rises in the brain and the blood and qi boil in the heart. Don't you understand this? If you don't control your heart, how can you see the great Tao?" He gazed at Chu Yang's body that was gradually swelling up, and said lightly, "If you can understand the meaning of my words one day, and achieve a state where your fighting spirit rises to the level of swallowing the heavens and swallowing the earth, but your blood and qi circulates smoothly like ice and snow, then you will be invincible in this world. The fighting spirit rises and swallows the heavens and the earth, but the blood and qi circulates smoothly like ice and snow. In this way, you will be invincible." Chu Yang's heart was moved. He firmly remembered this sentence in his heart. His body was getting more and more uncomfortable. Chu Yang already felt that his meridians were slowly cracking. He tried to follow the method that the man in white said to retract his fighting spirit and suppress his blood and qi. However, he couldn't do it after several attempts. The man in white watched silently. Finally, he sighed and said, "In the end, it's not. Oh well, let me give you a hand." The man in white floated forward. His left hand reached up and clenched. Chu Yang suddenly felt that the fighting spirit that rose on the surface and the fighting spirit in his heart, this invisible and mysterious thing, was actually caught by this hand. It was caught. This was an invisible thing, but it was caught by the man in white's hand. Chu Yang could even feel that the man in white's hand was ice cold. Immediately, the man in white's other hand pressed on Chu Yang's chest and pressed inwards. Chu Yang's chest suddenly sank inwards, and an ice-cold feeling gushed into his heart. His heart, which had been beating like a galloping horse, gradually calmed down. At the same time, the white-robed man's left palm moved downwards, and released it. That battle intent suddenly vented out, and a wave of violent emotions began to suppress his mind. His heart beat slower and slower. The violent emotion above became more and more intense. It was a complete contradiction. It was about to converge in his dantian. The moment Chu Yang's heart stopped beating, the man in white slapped his dantian. Then, he sucked outwards and pressed inwards. Chu Yang groaned. He only felt that all the spiritual energy in his dantian was sucked out. In an instant, his dantian was empty. It was an indescribable feeling of emptiness and discomfort. It was as if his cultivation had been completely crippled at this moment. If he maintained this state, he was sure that not even a finger would listen to his command. Immediately, his cultivation returned like a raging wave. The spiritual energy that was sucked out was actually sent back in. It actually completed the swallowing and spitting of his dantian just like that. Moreover, Chu Yang discovered that the moment his dantian was empty, he discovered a huge secret. That was, the dantian was actually an infinitely large space, and the cultivation that he thought was full actually only occupied a small part of his dantian. If it was not completely empty, he would not have discovered it at all. Why was this? But he did not have time to think about it. Because in this short process of swallowing and spitting, his dantian was completely empty. All the spiritual energy in his meridians that was about to explode entered his dantian at the same time. And at this moment, the spiritual energy that he had just spat out returned and merged with the spiritual energy that had just entered. His dantian swelled outwards and immediately returned to its original state. Starting from his dantian, it flowed upwards and started a new cycle. Chu Yang suddenly discovered that all the discomfort and swelling had actually disappeared at this moment. And his body was filled with energy. He was completely in his best state. Such a problem that even a supreme martial artist could not solve in the entire heavenly continent was actually solved so easily in such a way. Such a huge disaster that caused one's expression to change was actually a huge blessing. Chu Yang was really confused at this moment. Who exactly was this man in white? The sword spirit definitely did not know about such a method. If the sword spirit knew, he would have already become a supreme martial artist. And the man in white also said before, how can this continent tolerate me? Then, who exactly was he? Where did he come from? Why did he stay in this black blood forest? The heavenly continent was so big. With his cultivation, he could dominate anywhere he went. Chapter 908. Questions lingered in Chu Yang's mind. For a moment, his thoughts were in a mess, and he was actually a little upset. Moreover, Chu Yang realized that Wei Wuyan, who was so close to him, didn't notice such a big thing happening on his side. The man in white had completely blocked Wei Wuyan's vision and hearing. This made Chu Yang even more shocked. Blocking one's vision and hearing was not as good as defeating the opponent. This was a kind of shielding to a certain extent. What was Wei Wuyan's cultivation? It was 1,000 times more difficult to cut off Wei Wuyan's vision and hide this world in front of Wei Wuyan than killing Wei Wuyan. Chu Yang turned back and looked at the man in white. The man in white nodded slightly. Try and see how many levels have you broken through. Chu Yang tried to activate his spiritual power. He felt that his meridians were surging like a river. This level of cultivation. It's not something that a 3rd grade sword sovereign should have. And not a 7th grade one. And not an 8th grade one, 3rd grade, 2nd grade sword sovereign. Peak level of cultivation. Chu Yang raised his head in puzzlement. Yes, I've broken through 3 levels in one go. But I don't feel like I've broken through. It seems that I'm still a 3rd grade sword sovereign. What's the reason? The man in white snorted. It's about the same as that guy over there. Your cultivation is there, but your realm is not there. Now, you're at most in the realm of a 3rd grade sword sovereign. Chu Yang smiled and said in a carefree manner, "I'll level up eventually." There was strong confidence in his voice, as well as a kind of don't take it to heart kind of carefree. The man in white laughed, and his eyes actually flashed with warmth. "Your temper is not bad. Like a person?" Chu Yang asked. "Like who?" The man in white sighed and stood there in a daze. For a long time, he didn't speak or move. After a long time, his figure floated and he said, "Follow me." After a pause, he said, "Both of you, follow me." Then, his white robe fluttered, and he walked forward. Wei Wuyan and Chu Le, who were at the side, suddenly realized that the figures of Chu Yang and the man in white had appeared in the foggy area in front of them. They didn't know what had happened. Seeing that Chu Yang asked the two to follow him, they followed behind him and walked in with the man in white. The man in white walked forward slowly. This time, he finally released his aura. The three of them followed behind him. For some reason, they suddenly felt that as he moved forward, the world became brighter and brighter. The gloomy darkness seemed to have disappeared. It was blocked out by him. The three of them used their movement techniques and continued forward, covering more than 100 miles. In front of him was a black forest barrier that pierced through the clouds. The man in white separated his hands and shouted, "Open!" The entire forest barrier suddenly separated from the middle. Chu Yang and the other two simultaneously felt a bright light in front of them. They couldn't help but have a feeling of dispersing the clouds and seeing the blue sky. They couldn't help but feel relaxed. After the thicket was separated, the inside was actually filled with red flowers and green willows. The sky was clear and the sun was bright. It was a scene of spring. It was already autumn, yet something like this was happening here. This was strange. Now that they were in the Black Blood Forest and it was dark, it was even more inconceivable that such a fairyland-like place had appeared. The man in white seemed to have sensed the three's strangeness and said, "Although I can't create heaven and earth, I can still use my own methods to create my own sky here." This sentence made Chu Yang and Wei Wuyan's whole body tremble. "Open up a piece of my own sky." This sentence was something that the two of them didn't even dare to imagine. The four of them entered in a single file. This place wasn't big. It looked like it was only about 10 acres of land, but it had everything. Flowers and trees, small bridges, flowing water, shady bamboo paths, gentle breezes, a clear blue sky and white clouds above. Surrounding them were black towering trees that acted as fences. In the north of this place there was an exquisite house. From bottom to top, it was actually pink. Behind the house, there was a small pond. Beside the pond, there was a part of a small mountain. The mountain rocks were black, and a patch of vines crawled all over the mountain walls. This patch of vines was actually pink in color, faintly exuding a sparkling and translucent color. Once Chu Yang saw it, his eyes instantly lit up. Black blood poisonous core vine. Then, the water in the pond below must be the mysterious yin bone-destroying water. "This is where I live." The man in white laughed. "In 70,000 years, you're the third person to come here." 70,000 years. Chu Le stuck out her little tongue and said, "Then elder, aren't you more than 70,000 years old?" "More than 70,000 years?" The man in white smiled. "No, it's just that I've already been here for more than 70,000 years." Chu Yang and Wei Wuyan felt a little dizzy at the same time. After all, Chu Le was still a child. After walking in this gloomy and dark place for so long, she suddenly saw such a fairyland on earth. Her expression was a little dazed and full of longing. The man in white turned his head and said to Wei Wuyan, "You bring the little girl around to play. I have something to say to Chu Yang." This sentence was very impolite, and it could even be said to be in order. But Wei Wuyan didn't have any intention to resist. He replied respectfully, "Yes." He brought Chu Le to one side. The man in white stretched out his hand and said, "Sword Master Chu, please, let's talk under the pergola." Chu Yang smiled and said, "Okay." Suddenly, his eyes widened. "What did you call me?" The man in white shook his head and smiled lightly. "Tribulation Sword Master, your identity isn't a secret in front of me." Chu Yang replied awkwardly and said in admiration, "Miss, you're really amazing." The man in white also stopped his steps. "Miss." Chu Yang chuckled. Isn't that the case? The man in white looked at him for a long time and finally nodded. You're really meticulous. Chu Yang laughed. He thought, the flowers here are all red and the rooms are all pink. You actually want to talk under the pergola? Are you not a girl? Of course not. Since you've exposed my identity, I'll also expose yours. Let's call it even. The two came to the pergola and sat down opposite each other. The man in white stretched out his hand and the spiritual energy of the universe rushed over and condensed in his hand. In the blink of an eye, it formed a light green cup. He placed it on the stone table in front of him and it actually made a sound. Then, with another move, the spiritual energy of the universe turned into clear spring water and poured into the cup. It was as if there was an invisible fairy holding a teapot in the sky and elegantly pouring water down. I don't like to drink tea. The man in white smiled. So, I'm a little late. Just drink some water with me. Chu Yang said solemnly, this kind of water is what people dream of but can't drink. As he said, he smiled. Moreover, after drinking the water, this cup can be eaten mouthful by mouthful. It's very beneficial. The man in white smiled. If you can chew it, go ahead and eat it. Chu Yang took a sip and asked intentionally or unintentionally, the 5 people who came the previous few times, they must be the previous tribulation sword masters, right? The man in white shook his head. No. Then he sighed. These 2 people are much more terrifying than the so-called tribulation sword masters. Chu Yang nodded and said, Chen Feng? Liu Yun. The man in white smiled comfortably. It's much more comfortable talking to you. Chu Yang chuckled. He thought, so, other than the tribulation sword masters, only Chen Feng and Liu Yun have been here before. Chen Feng and Liu Yun have good temperaments, but they can't help me. The man in white pondered and said. Chu Yang understood. You need the power of the Tao state? The man in white smiled. That's right. Chu Yang finally understood why she often made some strange gestures during the previous battle. So, she was collecting the power of the Tao state. His previous guess was right. The reason why he could move freely in the Black Blood Forest was because he could easily enter the Tao state. And she needed such power. But, what did she need the power of the Tao state for? Chu Yang pondered and said, May I ask what you need the power of the Tao state for? The man in white didn't say anything and sighed. She raised her head and looked at the white clouds floating in the sky. For a long time, she didn't move. Just when Chu Yang thought that today's conversation was over, he heard her say lightly, a long time ago, the space I was in suddenly collapsed. Then, I desperately struggled in the void and didn't know where I was. Finally, one day, I crossed through the void and arrived at a strange place. There were no people, no beasts, nothing. There was only abundant spiritual energy in the world. I kept cultivating there. After tens of thousands of years. When I could tear the void apart, I left there and went to look for someone. Chu Yang said, Then it must be your sweetheart. The man in white revealed an embarrassed look and said, No. Suddenly, she said angrily, Why are you asking so much? Chu Yang was speechless. He thought, if it's not him, then it's not him. Why are you suddenly angry? Don't you know that my heart is beating fast when I'm facing such a powerful existence like you? The man in white sighed and said apologetically, I'm sorry. Whenever I talk about him, my mood will be very bad. It's very uncomfortable. Chu Yang said understandingly, I understand how you feel. He thought, if I can't find Mo Qingwu, I will also feel uncomfortable when others talk about her. The man in white was silent for a while and explained, He's my benefactor. Chu Yang said, Oh. The man in white sighed again. I've been searching for the mark of the Great Way, trekking from plane to plane. I don't know how much time has passed, and I don't know how many planes I've stepped on, but I still haven't found him. Every time I enter a plane, I'm not allowed to tear the void of the Great Way in the sky to enter. And this time, tearing the void apart again and again is a powerful restriction on my strength. I've been searching in the endless sky alone, and I've been disappointed time and time again, but I still haven't found him. I don't know where he has gone either. Speaking till here, she seemed to shrink her body and curled up. She hugged her knees with both hands and looked at the white clouds in the sky, lost in thought again. After a long time, Chu Yang heard the sound of splashing. He looked at the ground and saw a few drops of water falling. Those were the tears of the man in white, falling from her eyes that couldn't see her face clearly. I hammered for 17 hours. Aunt Fong came home and brought back a kitten that was just 1 month old. It meowed. It was very anxious, so I brought it over to play. In the end, it lay on the keyboard and didn't move. Aunt Fong was amazed and said, "This cat was definitely a man in its previous life. Look at how skilled it is at kneeling on the keyboard." Chapter 909. Chu Yang sighed in his heart. He thought of a scene like this. In the endless void, an infatuated woman was wandering alone, searching for the person she was looking for. She searched through one plane after another, but she still couldn't find the person she was looking for. That kind of speechless desolation, it was a feeling that would make anyone break down. Who could understand the bitterness of searching for hundreds of thousands of years? Chu Yang suddenly thought of the poem that Xue Leihan wrote in his previous life and spread around the world. "I thought you were here, so I came. But when I came to this world, you were not here. So I reincarnated again and again, searching for life after life. Every life, I dare not forget, just because we once promised. Even if you stood me up time and time again, let me wander for life after life. Mortal knows my bitterness, but doesn't know my regret," as he thought, he could not help but recite it softly. Mortal knows my bitterness, but doesn't know my regret. The woman in white murmured these 2 lines and suddenly smiled faintly. "Actually, I don't feel bitterness, but I don't regret it either." Chu Yang sighed and said, "That's right. If there is love in your heart, you won't feel bitterness." The woman in white smiled again. "That's not true. You are too obsessed with the relationship between a man and a woman, but I don't have the same feelings for him. I'm so obsessed with finding him, just to say thank you to him." She said in a daze, "Even if I find him, I won't say a word. I'll just look at him from afar, and that's enough." Chu Yang said sincerely, "I hope you can find him sooner." The woman in white said sadly, "It's difficult. Just this heaven continent has trapped me." "Trapped?" Chu Yang said in surprise, "You tore through the void like walking on flat ground. How could this heaven continent trap you?" The woman in white sighed deeply. "I also didn't expect. More than 70,000 years ago, I came here and felt that there were traces of the great Tao here, so I tore through the void and entered this heaven continent. When I entered this heaven continent, I realized that the traces of the great Tao had suddenly changed. Life and death were intertwined. Furthermore, the Tao realm in the sky above the continent was filled with destructive power. Furthermore, this continent had been destroyed before and then rebuilt. When I entered, I was torn apart by the power of the great Tao and the power of the heavenly Tao. My Tao realm power fought against it, and eventually, it was exhausted. When I finally entered, I found that the person I was looking for wasn't here. What made me feel even more helpless was that my Tao realm was severely damaged, and I couldn't get out. Moreover, due to the chaos of the heavenly Tao, the Tao realm power of this continent has become unpredictable and cannot be directly captured from the void. I can only obtain it from people. Moreover, only when people with profound martial arts enter the Tao realm can I capture a trace of Tao realm energy that is almost undetectable. An expert might not even have the chance to enter the Tao realm once or twice in his life. Even if I managed to capture him, it would be like pouring a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. It wouldn't affect the overall situation at all. After collecting for thousands of years, I realized that it was of no use. Disheartened, I lived in seclusion here. The man in white looked at Chu Yang. "Then, you met me." Chu Yang smiled. "Yes." The man in white smiled. "You are my only hope to recover the Tao realm." Chu Yang touched his nose and smiled bitterly. He didn't think that this was a good thing. Such a terrifying person wanted to collect his Tao realm energy. If she wanted to get the Tao realm energy from him, then, what would he do if she kept him here to fight endlessly? He couldn't beat her, and he couldn't escape. You can enter the Tao realm at any time. As long as you have space to fight, you can create unlimited Tao realm energy. The man in white looked at him. "So, I need your help." I'm afraid I can't help you. Chu Yang shook his head. I still have things to do. How can I accompany you to collect Dao realm energy for long? I don't want to keep you for long. The man in white smiled bitterly. The Dao realm energy can only be produced when you want to fight and have the desire to fight. If I force you, not to mention whether you can produce Dao realm energy or not, even if you don't want to fight, I can't control your body and enter your Dao realm. Then what do you want? Chu Yang asked. I'll follow you. The man in white said lightly. When I collect enough Dao realm energy, I'll leave. During this period, you'll only benefit and improve your strength. You won't lose anything. Once the Dao realm energy is produced, you'll be in a state of enlightenment. You don't need that energy. After you finish comprehending the Dao realm energy, it will dissipate between heaven and earth. You won't lose anything. The man in white said, You won't have any objections, right? When she said you won't have any objections, it was a question. But to anyone who heard it, it sounded like an affirmative sentence. You won't have any objections. Then, will you help me? Chu Yang mischievously smiled, and began to daydream. With an expert who can tear the void apart by herself, who dares to provoke me? I won't help you. The white-robed man looked at him and said, You have a great opportunity. You have to do your own things. Chu Yang said dejectedly, Then you'll just follow me? Of course not. The man in white said casually, Then won't you still help me? Chu Yang was overjoyed. I'll also create countless troubles for you. The man in white said, I'll give you endless opportunities to fight. Ah! Chu Yang was stunned. The fog around the white-robed man gradually dissipated, revealing his true appearance. She was dressed in white, and her hair was like the clouds. Chu Yang only saw these. As for the man in white's face, he couldn't describe it at all. It was a kind of extreme beauty, absolute perfection, absolutely impeccable, without any flaws. No words could describe it at all. Holy, noble, peerless beauty. This woman was the most perfect dream in any man's heart. Even with Chu Yang's willpower, he couldn't help but be dazzled for a while. After a long time, he shook his head and regained his senses. His face collapsed like a bitter gourd. I won't lose face for you if I follow you. The woman in white smiled. This smile was so beautiful, like the birth of a flower. The whole world, even the sun, the moon, and the stars, lost their color in front of this smile. Chu Yang was filled with endless grief and indignation. He finally understood the meaning of the man in white's words. I will only create countless troubles for you, and give you endless opportunities to fight and gain experience. The meaning of this sentence. With such an Avildor by his side, he almost couldn't control himself, not to mention those aristocratic families, playboys, and Jianghu men of the heaven-level continent. In the face of such a beauty, no man could resist such temptation. Then, she would follow him around ostentatiously. Chu Yang lowered his head in pain. He could already see countless crazy bees and butterflies swarming towards him. The woman in white smiled and said, I still have the power of seduction. Believe me, as long as you see my man, there's no one who doesn't want to find trouble with you. Chu Yang covered his face and groaned, Oh my God! Kill me. I'm already like a rat on the street, now I'm even more the enemy of the world. The woman in white said helplessly, Actually, I don't want to either. Chu Yang's face was sad and he didn't even want to speak. Isn't it good to have me by your side? The woman in white was very unhappy and even threatened. Are you not willing? Chu Yang cried and said, I'm willing, I'm so happy. That's a good boy. The woman in white laughed. Sigh. Chu Yang looked up and sighed. Miss, what's your name? My surname is Z. The woman in white recalled and said, My name is Z Xieching. Z Xieching? Chu Yang scratched his head. A woman with such a weird name. My whole life is because of a promise. Z Xieching said desolately, I used a name before, Xinwo Nuo. Then I abandoned it. Xinwo Nuo. Chu Yang nodded. This name was like a little girl who didn't know much about the world. No wonder she abandoned it. You can follow me. But there's something I want to make clear, Chu Yang said seriously. Say it. Z Xieching smiled slightly. I already have a wife, Chu Yang said seriously. Zi Xieching's expression became very interesting. Then her face sank and she stood up. She said, "Your cultivation increased too quickly just now and you haven't comprehended the realm yet. Come, I'll help you comprehend." Chu Yang was shocked and said, "It's not too late to comprehend later. Let's strike while the iron is hot." Zi Xieching reached out and picked him up and threw him out. Then she moved and attacked him like a storm. "Quickly use your sword. Comprehend." Chu Yang scrambled to get up, but he was already slapped into the air like a rubber ball. Then, there were cracking sounds all over his body. That was a very crazy beating. After a long time, Chu Yang was already groaning on the ground like a pig's head. "Have you comprehended the 7th level?" Zi Xieching's shoes appeared in front of him. "Not yet." "Oh, then get up and hit me again. Continue to comprehend." "No." Chu Yang refused firmly. Then he said, "This comprehension needs an opportunity. I'll bestow you with an opportunity," Zi Xieching said calmly. Then she hooked Chu Yang with her toes and he couldn't help but flip over. Then, there was another round of beating. After being beaten over and over again, Chu Yang gradually became more tolerant. He could actually launch a counterattack. After a long time, he actually entered the Tao state under such torture. The two of them flipped over and over and attacked crazily. But there wasn't even a speck of dust on the ground. After a long time, as Chu Yang fell from the sky like a dead pig, the aura of a breakthrough finally appeared. Sword Master Chu finally broke through to the 7th stage of Sword Sovereign. But this Sword Emperor who had just broken through had a bloody nose and a swollen face. His entire body was covered in bruises. Zi Xieching looked at him condescendingly and said very casually, "Sword Master Chu, you can practice your sword, but don't practice your cheap mouth. You're now a sword sovereign. Remember not to become a cheap sovereign." I'll continue to write the 3rd update. Today's biggest wish, to reach 5,300 monthly votes before midnight. Now it's 5,147. I hope to reach 5,300 by midnight. Brothers and sisters, please fulfill my wish. 5,300 before midnight. Explode today. Continue to explode tomorrow. To reach 5,500 before midnight. Explode all the way to the 31st. Chapter 9-10. Chu Yang wanted to cry but had no tears. "From the moment I agreed to let you follow me, I've already become a lowly emperor," Zi Xieching smiled and said, "This is your great fortune. Other people can't wait for me to follow them." Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Thinking that he would be abused every day in the future, and also have to deal with the endless troubles brought by this demon, and deal with those perverts every day. Chu Yang's heart was filled with sorrow. "Why is my life so bitter?" Chu Yang looked up to the sky and sighed. At this time, Chu Le and Wei Wuyan walked back. Seeing Chu Yang's appearance, they instantly exclaimed and ran over. "Big brother. Why are you beaten so badly?" Chu Yang smiled with difficulty. "I'm already very satisfied that I'm still alive." Wei Wuyan shook his head and sighed. "You really?" "Ah!" Suddenly, his 2 eyeballs protruded out of their sockets. "You broke through again? Fuck." He turned around in a daze. "You." Suddenly seeing Zi Xieching's face, he instantly took a deep breath and was stunned. Chu Le at the side also sighed. "So beautiful," Wei Wuyan also murmured. "Yes, so beautiful." Chu Yang became even more sorrowful. "What do you know? You guys only see beauty, but I, your big brother, only see endless trouble." Seeing that even with Wei Wuyan's determination, he was actually so dazzled, Chu Yang was completely in despair. It seemed that he couldn't get rid of this trouble. Another 7 days later, Chu Yang sat on the ground, full of energy, and breathed in and out. Wei Wuyan stood at the side in a daze, with a face full of envy, jealousy, and hatred. In these 7 days, he saw Chu Yang enter the Tao state as easily as eating a meal for 11 times. This number almost made Wei Wuyan crazy. In these 7 days, he saw with his own eyes that Chu Yang's cultivation rose from Grade Sword Emperor to Grade 7 Sword Emperor, then to Grade 7 Sword Emperor, then to the peak, then to Grade 8 Sword Emperor, then to Grade 9 Sword Emperor, then to Grade 9 Sword Emperor, then to Grade 9 Sword Emperor, and then to the peak. Then, today, He witnessed the battle with his own eyes. It was in this battle that Chu Yang entered the Dao state again, broke through the sword sovereign grade, and became a first-grade sword sovereign. This was a miracle. Wei Wuyan witnessed the miracle with his own eyes. It's too outrageous. Wei Wuyan murmured, this cultivation speed is really the best in the world. Number one in the world. Zi Sheqing looked at Chu Yang and said lightly, this is the number one in the world. Ha ha. There was once someone who completed the entire journey from an ordinary person to a supreme being in your Chongqian continent in a single day. Do you believe it? I don't believe it. Wei Wuyan shook his head violently. Even if you beat me to death, I won't believe it. If that's the case, then what's the point of our thousands of years of cultivation? Zi Sheqing said lightly, I didn't ask you to believe me. Chu Le looked at Zi Sheqing happily, her eyes full of envy. After thinking for a long time, she took out a purple crystal puppy hairpin, which was carved by W.N. Renjie for her. She handed it to Zi Sheqing reluctantly. Sister Zi, you're so beautiful. You'll definitely look better with this. Zi Sheqing smiled warmly. I don't need this. You should wear it. I've been used to not wearing jewelry for many years. Chu Le said enviously, yes, you're naturally beautiful. Even if you don't wear anything, you'll still be a peerless beauty. Zi Sheqing stroked her hair and said softly, Le will be more beautiful than you when you grow up. Really? Chu Le asked hopefully. Really? Zi Sheqing nodded affirmatively. Chu Le was instantly elated. After a long time, Chu Yang woke up from his meditation and met Zi Sheqing's eyes. Le, what medicine do you still need for your illness? Zi Sheqing asked. You still need the color lotus. Chu Yang said bluntly. Color lotus. Zi Sheqing frowned. That thing grows there. These days, Zi Sheqing spent time with Chu Le when she was free. She liked this little girl very much. Therefore, she was more concerned about her. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, anyway, there's none in the Black Blood Forest. After these few days of interaction, he could tell that although Zi Sheqing wasn't young anymore and could be said to be an old monster of hundreds of thousands of years, she didn't know much about things outside of cultivation. She knew a little about the ways of the world, but when it came to things outside of cultivation, there was nothing to write home about. But it was also pardonable. Just by listening to her experience, one could understand. The space that she was originally cultivating in suddenly collapsed and she arrived at a new plane. There was no one there, only spirit energy. This meant that she had been cultivating alone for tens of thousands of years before she tore open the void and left. Since there was no one there, how could she know about other things? One must know that it was passed down by humans. After that, she wandered through dozens of planes just to find people and had no time to learn anything. And with her character and cultivation, she really couldn't be bothered to learn anything. Anyway, wherever she went, there was nothing that could pose a threat to her. Le body constitution needs the elixirs here. Chu Yang said, especially this black blood poisonous core vine and mysterious yin bone-destroying water. Zi Sheqing said indifferently, you want them? Just take them. She asked again, do you want anything else? Chu Yang's eyes lit up. You have anything else here? Although I won't get hurt easily, but after going through a few planes and continents, I've also picked some heavenly treasures along the way. Zi Sheqing said lightly, if you want them, there's no harm in giving them to you. Give them to me, give them to me. Chu Yang rubbed his hands, unable to contain his joy. At this moment, he felt that it wouldn't be troublesome to bring Zi Sheqing along. There were actually such things that fell from the sky, elixirs from other planes. Heh. For someone like Zi Sheqing to take a fancy to them, they must be extraordinary. Zi Sheqing nodded lightly. Here. With a swoosh, a pile of elixirs that looked like a small mountain appeared. These are from the Black Blood Forest. With another swoosh, another pile appeared. These are from the Dream Shen continent. These are from the Purple Smoke continent. These are from the Pingyang continent. These are, looking at the piles of elixirs in front of him, Chu Yang was so excited that his face was contorted. Waha, this is great. He was about to go forward and take them all. The sword spirit in the space of tribulation was also so excited that he danced with joy. These are all top-grade elixirs. I can give you these from the Blackblood Forest. With a wave of her hand, Zi Sheqing kept the rest. Then, Chu Yang was stunned. What about the rest? Looking at the black elixirs in front of him, Chu Yang suddenly felt extremely disappointed. Originally, if she didn't take out the other elixirs, Chu Yang would be satisfied with these. Extremely satisfied. It was far beyond the kind of satisfaction that he expected. But now, looking at the pile in front of him, he was too dissatisfied. These are my rewards to you. I'll give you 1 elixir for every Tao state energy that I collect from you. I'll pay immediately upon receiving the goods. No credit, Zi Sheqing said impartially. Oh. Chu Yang was instantly discouraged. So you're still thinking of this? Zi Sheqing smiled. If I didn't have the means to control you, wouldn't I have been used by you all along the way? Do you think I can't tell that you're cunning? I'm not so bad. Chu Yang touched his nose a little embarrassedly. Rolling his eyes, he said, since that's the case, I've let you collect Tao state energy 10 times in this half a month. You should also give me 10 elixirs. As he said, he stretched out his hand righteously. I can give these to you. Zi Sheqing didn't hesitate at all. She casually took out 10 types of elixirs and threw them on the ground as if she was throwing rubbish. Here, these are for you. Chu Yang said angrily, can't you be gentler? These are things that will cause all their spiritual energy to run away once they're broken. Zi Sheqing curled her lips in disdain. Chu Yang could completely read her expression. So what if they run away? I don't care about them anyway. They're even more useless to me. Chu Yang sighed and walked over to take a look. He couldn't help but be angry. These 10 types of heavenly treasures are really heavenly treasures. And they're all top grade. It's just that, these are 10 identical fruits and not 10 different types. These were dragon saliva fruits. Every one of them was crystal clear and contained a huge amount of spiritual energy. They were the size of a fist and seemed to have a layer of frost on the surface. Even if they were placed on the ground, they actually couldn't be seen clearly. When the sun shone on them, they would become completely invisible to protect themselves, so be it. Chu Yang could only comfort himself. Anyway, it's better than nothing. With a wave of his hand, he kept them all with a swoosh. In the tribulation space, the sword spirit started to be endlessly busy. He divided, categorized, and planted the elixirs that could continue to evolve into the soil so that they could continue to grow. As for the elixirs that couldn't continue to grow, he used the Shenyin Jade and Shenyang Jade to make a huge shelf of elixirs and set it up. The mysterious Yin Jade and the mysterious Yang Jade had been made into thin and long jades by the sword spirit. Some of them were long and wide, and some were thin and long. In fact, they had been partitioned into small spaces one after another. Each of them was 50 feet high, and 70 to 80 feet wide. So, these 5 big shelves were completely filled. If anyone saw that the Shenyin Jade and Shenyang Jade, which could only be found by chance, were being wasted like this, they would definitely vomit blood and die from heartache. Now, in the tribulation space, there was not only a vitality spring, but also a soul-quenching spring. There were 2 springs, one in the south and one in the north. Next to the soul-quenching spring, there were 2 soul-quenching pools for the sword spirit and Chu Yang to soak in every day. It couldn't be said that today was very comfortable. Next to the vitality spring, the sword spirit opened up a large piece of land. Now, it was full of elixirs. The sword spirit had no choice but to open up another large piece of land and leave it idle. He couldn't help but sigh. This sword master is really different from the previous ones. He didn't use this piece of land in the past. Now, he seems to want to fill it up. This is really satisfying. Third update. I just checked the monthly votes of the top 4 monthly votes. It seems that we increased the least today, requesting monthly votes, requesting recommendation votes, requesting evaluation votes. Chapter 9:11. Can we go now? Zi Sheqing looked at Chu Yang and asked lightly. When she said this, her expression was very indifferent. She had lived here for 70,000 years, but she didn't seem to have any feelings for this place. There wasn't the slightest bit of nostalgia. Wait for a while, I'll deal with the black blood poisonous core vine and keep the mysterious yin bone-destroying water. As Chu Yang said, he walked towards the back of the room. You can also take this time to pack your things, so that you don't have to come back to take them in the future. As long as I leave this place, I won't come back again. Zi Xieching's gaze wandered around the room, and there was still a trace of sadness in her eyes. After living here for so long, I have feelings for the room. This person's feelings are really very strange. Although she was peerless, noble and holy, she always gave people the feeling that she was above the common populace, with a sense of superiority, and also a sense of coldness and ruthlessness. Besides the initial amazement, Chu Yang didn't see her as a woman anymore after interacting with her for a long time. It was too terrifying. Wei Wuyan saw that she was pretty, and nothing happened to her if he took a few more glances, but if he took a few more glances, he would immediately be abused. It was known as absorbing the power of the Tao state. In short, she used all means and excuses to force Chu Yang to fight and then enter the Tao state. Even a battle maniac like Chu Yang, with such unparalleled tenacity, was tormented by her to the point that he almost lost interest in fighting. Fighting, there had to be wins and losses. What was the point of always losing and being abused? But at this moment, she slightly showed a trace of a woman's sensibility. She walked quietly to the flower rack and sat down. She silently looked at the place where she had lived for 70,000 years and didn't move at all. Even if she was disappointed, even if she was heartbroken, even if she couldn't bear to leave, she could only keep it in her heart. Zi Xieching sat quietly, her face cold. Wei Wuyan and Chu Le sat at the side, not daring to disturb her. Chu Yang walked towards the mysterious yin bone-destroying water. Whether Zi Xieching knew or not, Chu Yang didn't want her to follow him. Chu Yang didn't even want Wei Wuyan and Chu Le to know about this. It wasn't that he didn't trust her, but there were too many people around. Because there might be another world below the black blood poisonous core vine. The black blood poisonous core vine was different from the black blood vine. Although it didn't have any toxicity, it was known as the source of all poisons. This title wasn't just for show. Generally, where black blood vines grew, there would definitely be a concentration of absolute poison below. But where the black blood poisonous core vine grew, there was a very high chance that there would be a heaven poison jade crystal underneath. The heaven poison jade crystal was one of the great miracle medicines of the heavens. The heaven poison jade crystal was extremely useful and helpful to Chu Yang, the sword spirit, the tribulation sword, and Chu Le. Chu Yang wouldn't dare to reveal such a secret to someone he trusted. They would really be exterminated. Walking closer to the mountain wall, he found that the water was indeed frighteningly clear. Even though he was still 100 feet away, he could faintly feel a bone-chilling cold. It really is the burning bones cold spring, the sword spirit said with an excited sigh. On the surface of the water vapor rose and formed a strange mist. It was like the shape of a burning flame. It was boiling and rising continuously, giving off a faint hissing sound. This spring water is extremely cold. Within 10 feet, ordinary people will be frozen to death. Within 3 steps, their bones will be frozen and shattered. Within 1 step, even a revered martial artist won't be able to stand. Within 1 breath, one won't be able to walk even if he wants to. The sword spirit explained in a low voice in the tribulation space, but once one enters this water, he will be burned instantly, until he turns into a pile of ashes. This is the uniqueness of the mysterious yin bone-burning water. Chu Yang asked, "Can this spring water be used on men?" The sword spirit smiled. "Of course it can be used on men. But there has to be a limit. Also, it can only be smeared and not directly drunk. If a woman drinks it directly, her constitution will be better with the protection of a powerful expert. But if a man drinks it directly, he will be burned to death by internal fire." Chu Yang nodded. "Smear? What smear?" "Smear. It means that you have to smear this spring water continuously on your joints. After more than 10 times, your joints will become soft. At that time, even if you attack from the front, it will be as natural as attacking from the front," the sword spirit said. Chu Yang frowned and thought silently. After a long time, he said, "What about me? Do I need to smear this spring water? The sword spirit smiled. You can smear it, but I advise you not to. Not only you, but also your brothers, Jiu Duxing and Dong Wushang are not suitable for smearing this spring water. The others don't matter. Chu Yang said, oh? Because you and Jiu Duxing are too sharp, and Dong Wushang is too domineering. If you allow your joints to move freely, you will lose that kind of indomitable and tragic momentum. The loss outweighs the gain. Chu Yang nodded in understanding. I see. The sword spirit laughed. But this mysterious yin bone-burning water can be used to water several kinds of elixirs in the tribulation space. Let me put this spring water into the tribulation space first. As he said, Chu Yang strode forward to the side of the cold pond. In the tribulation space, the sword spirit shouted, "Come in." He made a strange gesture with his big hand and pulled it in. With a splash, the entire bone-burning cold pond disappeared together with the pond. Only the bare ground and a big pond of 100 feet deep were left. The bone-chilling cold also disappeared in an instant. Over there, the three of them looked over curiously. Wei Wuyan stood up and wanted to help. But he was stopped by Zi Sheqing. Don't go over. Why? Wei Wuyan didn't understand. More people means more power. Zi Sheqing said lightly, if he needs help, he will say it. Since he didn't say it, he naturally has his reasons. Then you'd better not move. Oh, Wei Wuyan replied embarrassedly and sat down. It wasn't that he had to help, but it was really too uncomfortable to sit here. He couldn't sit still. Firstly, the other party was a great expert that he couldn't imagine. Secondly, the other party was a peerless beauty. Wei Wuyan felt very ashamed. He was already more than 1,000 years old, but he couldn't control himself in front of this stunning beauty and behaved like a young boy. After being stopped by Zi Sheqing, Wei Wuyan could only sit down again. Suddenly, he understood the reason why Chu Yang sighed at the mention of Zi Sheqing these few days. With his cultivation and experience, he was already like this when he saw Zi Sheqing. If Zi Sheqing followed Chu Yang out of the Black Blood Forest, then Wei Wuyan shuddered. That would be a huge trouble. Thinking of this, Wei Wuyan looked at Zi Sheqing with a lingering fear. He finally understood what the elders often said, marrying a wife, marrying someone who can get by is enough. Why did you marry such a beautiful one? You would get yourself killed for no reason. This was true. If Chu Yang brought Zi Sheqing out, it wouldn't just be a fatal disaster. It would be making the whole world his enemy. What a demon. What a disaster. Wei Wuyan muttered a few words in his heart. Then, he rejoiced. Luckily, she's not my wife. What are you looking at so sneakily? Zi Sheqing frowned and scolded him. Wei Wuyan laughed dryly and said, nothing, nothing. He forcibly turned his neck away. On the other side, Chu Yang had already collected all the black blood poisonous core vines that filled the entire mountain wall. Then, he followed the roots of the black blood poisonous core vines and jumped into the huge pit. With a clang, he pulled out his calamity sword and stabbed it down. After a while, a pitch-black stone with a radius of several feet was lifted up from the ground by Chu Yang and thrown aside. Instantly, there was a loud bang. Chu Yang didn't stop. Big stones were lifted up and thrown out by him one by one. Gradually, a stone mountain was piled up behind him. But the black stones seemed to be endless. There was no sign of softening at all. He was 70 feet deep. 100 feet. 200 feet. Raising his head and straightening his back, Chu Yang was a little helpless. It was already 500 feet deep. Looking out from his current position, the sky above his head was already less than the size of a palm. And there was still no trace of the heaven-poisoned jade crystal. There wasn't even any reaction. If not for the sword spirit's constant guarantee, Chu Yang almost wanted to give up. As he dug, Chu Yang complained, "Sword spirit, it's already 700 feet deep. Do you think that if I keep digging like this, I'll keep digging for 3 days?" The sword spirit almost spurted out. "Digging for 3 days? You really know how to think. Hurry up and dig. Even if you dig until Zi Sheqing's age, you won't be able to dig it out completely in such a long time." Chu Yang sighed and buried his head in his work. Another 500 feet down. Chu Yang was a little out of breath. He raised his head and leaned against the cave wall to rest. Pay attention, we're almost there. The sword spirit said hurriedly, take out the inner core of the poisonous flood dragon and keep it in your mouth. Also, I'll give you a heavy pill. Eat it first to counteract the poison. Chu Yang was furious. Didn't you say that there's no more heavy pills? The sword spirit smiled embarrassedly. There's only one left. Chu Yang rolled his eyes angrily. You're a miser. He grabbed the heavy pill and threw it into his mouth. After thinking for a while, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. After eating the heavy pill, I'll break through. Didn't you always prevent me from breaking through with the help of the pill? The sword spirit smiled embarrassedly again. But don't you have Zi Sheqing by your side now? Chu Yang was speechless. He took out the inner core of the poisonous flood dragon and wanted to beat the sword spirit up again. Keep it in my mouth. Tell me how I should do that. The sword spirit was also dumbfounded. The inner core of the poisonous flood dragon was the size of a bowl. Keep it in your mouth. Then hang it in front of your chest and stick your mouth on it, the sword spirit said helplessly. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh. My image has been ruined by you. Young Master Chu's current shape was very strange. There was a huge round pill in front of his chest. Young Master Chu was like a baby drinking milk. He opened his mouth and sealed it tightly. While rolling his eyes, he continued to work. He continued to dig stones. When he dug another 80 feet, there was finally a reaction. Chapter 9:12. As the sword went down, Chu Yang lifted up a small piece of stone. A dark green poisonous gas, which could almost incinerate everything, suddenly rose up. The stone walls around them started to crackle, and a layer of powder started to fall to the ground. It was just a layer of poisonous gas, but it actually dissolved a layer of such hard stones in the black blood forest. Chu Yang's whole body was covered in cold sweat, and his pair of eyeballs suddenly protruded out. Oh my God! The poisonous flood dragon's inner core instantly turned pale white, and there was even a layer of green fog inside. The poisonous gas rose up, and Chu Yang forcibly held his breath. At this moment, the heavy pill's medicinal power exploded, and a layer of light enveloped Chu Yang's body. The poisonous gas floated out with a whoosh. In this small and narrow space, the stone powder scattered and fell with a whoosh. By the time this poisonous gas was completely released, half of Chu Yang's body was already buried by the stone powder. And the light screen formed by the heavy pill also disappeared. Damn, this poison is really fierce. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. His two layers of protection, the heavy pill and the poisonous flood dragon's inner core, were the nemesis of all poisons in the world. But after withstanding this poisonous gas, the light screen of the heavy pill was destroyed, and the poisonous flood dragon's inner core also turned green. This is a protective poison, and not the poison of the heaven poison jade crystal. The sword spirit said, the heaven poison jade crystal needs to be released, and it won't be released. It can only harm itself, and not others. You can continue to dig, it should be below. Chu Yang exhaled, took down the poisonous flood dragon's inner core, and soaked it in the vitality spring water. Then, he wrapped the stone powder with his elemental energy and slammed it into the stone walls. He thought to himself, this place is in trouble. Whoever comes here in the future and accidentally touches these things, although the toxicity has been greatly reduced, but those below the monarch level will probably be half dead, if not dead. Then, he raised his sword and continued to dig. This time, he only dug 5 feet down, and the sword tip obviously felt soft. He carefully pulled it open, and saw that the black stone below was already faintly glowing red. After digging another 3 feet down, the red stone had already turned pink, as if a fault had suddenly appeared. The pink stone was crystal clear. This is the heaven poison jade crystal. Further down was the sky poison jade heart. Inside the sky poison jade heart was the sky poison jade crystal. It has the same structure as the mysterious ice jade paste and the mysterious yang jade essence. The sword spirit was somewhat moved. This is a treasure. Quickly, take it all. Chu Yang didn't dare to be negligent. He moved them out piece by piece. The sword spirit collected large chunks of heaven poison jade into the intertwined space. The The two of them worked together seamlessly, and it didn't take long for them to finish transporting the heaven poison jade. What was revealed below was some pink sky poison jade that faintly exuded a warm smell. What was different from before was that the sky poison jade that appeared now was shrouded in a layer of faint pink mist. The mist floated densely but did not disperse when blown away. It was the heaven poison jade heart. Chu Yang carefully chopped the sky poison jade core in pieces without damaging it at all. When he reached the centerpiece, it turned out to be a perfectly round pink jade the size of a human head. It seemed to be flowing inside, as if there was some creature trapped inside. It was constantly tumbling and jumping, struggling. Every time it tumbled, there would be rainbow-colored clouds surging inside. She was so beautiful that she didn't belong to this world. This is the heaven poison jade crystal. The sword spirit looked at the heaven poison jade crystal with some disappointment and said, "It's only been a little more than 2 years, and we've already obtained 3 of them. Such fortune, such luck, it's really," Chu Yang chuckled, "Sword spirit, you've benefited greatly from following me." The sword spirit said with deep emotion, "That's true." Chu Yang was originally joking. He didn't expect the sword spirit to actually admit it. The sword spirit said with a smile, "Actually, the biggest reason why I've benefited from following you is because you treat me as a human. The previous 8 tribulations sword masters only treated me as a sword and a tool. They believed that a sword spirit is an accessory of a sword and has no feelings." Chu Yang said in surprise, "What is this saying? Sword spirit. Sword spirit. Sword spirit. Since it has become a spirit, then it has spirituality. Since it has spirituality, then it has feelings. It has joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. With these, it is equivalent to a person. So, why did they only treat you as a tool?" The sword spirit said in a deep voice, "This is the difference between people." Chu Yang nodded and said with a smile, "It's also the difference between the emotional path and the emotionless path, right?" The sword spirit smiled. "Exactly." Chu Yang still wanted to say something, but he felt a burning fire in his dantian. The medicinal effect of the heavy pill had already taken effect completely. In an instant, his whole body almost swelled up, but there was no pain at all. Instead, there was a strange kind of comfort and he felt extremely satisfied. This kind of feeling rose continuously like a tide and lasted for an hour. Chu Yang felt that his meridians were expanding little by little and becoming more flexible little by little. The internal energy in his body was increasing continuously and stabilizing at the same time. At the same time, his mind seemed to be constantly flushed and washed, as if it was a reef that was exposed to the surface of the sea and was constantly being baptized by the wind and waves. Every moment, there seemed to be new realizations appearing. Chu Yang suddenly felt that his consciousness seemed to have left his body and wandered in the endless void. Countless stars were blinking beside him. Every time they blinked, they seemed to transmit a different kind of realizations to him. He was immersed in this beautiful dreamlike state and actually forgot everything. Under the flower canopy in the distance, Zi Xieching suddenly raised her head and looked over in surprise. Because at this moment, she actually realized that Chu Yang had disappeared from her senses. He had completely disappeared without a trace. At the same time, a wave of pure Tao state energy appeared as though it was boundless. This is not just the pure Tao state energy, this is the heavenly way energy. Zi Xieching was taken aback. With a swoosh, she disappeared from where she stood. She had already made that mysterious hand gesture in midair. This Tao state energy that suddenly appeared was far stronger than before. Zi Xieching was full of excitement. Wei Wuyan and Chu Le also wanted to go over and take a look. But just as they were about to move, they realized that they could not move. The internal energy in Chu Yang's body was like a well. And at this moment, there was a big fountain at the bottom of the well. It was surging and pushing up the water level of the well. As for the comprehension in his mind, it was even more chaotic, but it was also very orderly. His cultivation was rising steadily. Sword Sovereign, 1st grade. Continued to break through. Peak. 2nd grade. Stage. Peak. 3rd grade. After a long time, Chu Yang woke up from a comfortable state. He only felt that his body was floating and almost weightless. In his mind, It was as if he had cultivated for hundreds of years. The realizations were so clear. Level by level, he had reached a level that he did not even dare to dream of. With a slight movement of his internal energy, Chu Yang felt that his body was floating. With a shake of his arms, he actually rose up to a height of 300 to 400 feet. His mind shook violently and Chu Yang immediately landed again. What's going on? This is the heavy pill, the real heavy pill. The sword spirit's voice was filled with pride. One for life and death, one for flesh and bones, one for changing the root of the body, one for heaven. The real heavy pill. Chu Yang muttered to himself. He only knew that the heavy pill was extremely overbearing, but he had never taken it before. He had only taken the incomplete version of the heavy pill for healing. Now that he had eaten it, he knew that the heavy pill was actually so powerful. This heavy pill allowed you to raise your cultivation by 4 stages. It has raised your cultivation from 1st grade sword sovereign to 5th grade sword sovereign, the sword spirit said. At the same time, it has also raised your cultivation level by a whole 10 grade. Now, your cultivation level is already 1st grade martial saint. Chu Yang himself could not help but take in a breath of cold air. He had long heard of the power of the heavy pill and knew about its functions. But when it was finally his turn today, he still felt shock. Life and death, flesh and bones. Disregarding grades, raise cultivation level. Disregarding grades, rebirth. Disregarding grades, raise cultivation level by 10 grade. Now, Chu Yang finally understood the meaning of these words. There won't be any side effects, right? Chu Yang was surprised but also doubtful. He asked. Any medicine, any cultivation level, as long as it is raised with the help of medicine, there will definitely be side effect. The sword spirit said solemnly, that's why I don't recommend you to use the heavy pill to cultivate. But now that you have Zi Sheqing by your side, you can overcome the side effects under her super pressure. Using the high pressure, you can condense your cultivation into a real one in the shortest time possible. Of course, it's also because of the heavenly poison jade crystal. Other than the heavy pill, there's nothing else that can suppress it. That's why I let you take one. Chu Yang's face turned bitter. That means, from the moment I took the heavy pill, I immediately had to face Zi Sheqing's abuse, and it's even worse. The sword spirit actually smiled gloatingly. If you want to understand it this way, it's fine. Chu Yang was surprised. Suddenly, he thought of something. Qingwu and my parents have both taken the heavy pill. Are they okay? The sword spirit laughed. Mo Qingwu is okay. Because the heavy pill is mainly used to rebirth and treat her old illness. It did not raise any cultivation level. Besides, she didn't have any cultivation level to raise at that time. So, it can only be hidden in her meridians. As her cultivation deepens, it will slowly unleash its function. There's no effect. Chu Yang said, Qingwu is okay. Then what about my parents? The sword spirit touched his chin. They are somewhat affected. Because when breaking through to the supreme martial artist level, the bottleneck is much harder to break through compared to ordinary people. You must know that forcibly raising one's cultivation level will definitely face greater obstacles. However, with their aptitude, it's not certain how long it will take for them to reach that level. By then, you may have a way. Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her white clothes fluttered as she flew into the sky. She looked at Chu Yang in shock. What's going on? Today, he went for a massage and had his penis removed. Both shoulders, the back of his neck, his trapezius muscles, his waist, all the way to the sciatic nerve of his buttocks. More than 10 purplish-black lumps protruded out. What the heck? It was raining in Lai Wu. The autumn wind was cold. On the way back, he received the attention of all the ladies, feeling smug. When he reached home and looked in the mirror, he realized that the scar on his neck could not be covered at all. It was a spectacular sight, as if a black bear tattoo had been exposed. No wonder they looked at me. They must have taken me for a gangster. I'm very sorry for the late update today. I have to hurry up and write my story. I've just finished the treatment and my whole body feels good. So, I'm preparing to explode tomorrow and the day after. Chapter 9:13. Zi Xieching's bright eyes were filled with disbelief and astonishment. In these short 4 hours, the energy of the Tao state that she had collected was actually 100 times more than what she had collected in the past few days. So, as soon as this state ended, she hurriedly flew over to ask. This question was not important, because she had involuntarily added the essence of the universe into her voice. She roared towards the bottom of the well that was more than 1,000 feet deep. There was no place for her voice to disperse. Instantly, it reverberated in the well like thunder. Young Master Chu, who had just broken through, was in for a tragedy. With a scream, he covered his ears and almost rolled on the ground. His 7 orifices were almost bleeding from this violent sound wave. Just as he was about to protest, he saw the big rock above him collapse. The entire well collapsed. With a blood-curdling scream, he was buried alive under the ground. The last thing he saw before he was buried was Zi Xieching's pretty face that was full of surprise and a little embarrassed. "I've been killed by this woman. I haven't even left the Black Blood Forest and I'm already like this. If I go out, I really don't know what will happen." Femme fatale, the ancients really didn't lie. This was Chu Yang's last thought before he was buried. After a long time, Chu Yang crawled out with his face covered in dust. He lay on the ground with his arms and legs spread out. His chest heaved up and down rapidly as he breathed in the fresh air. There was a big bump on his forehead like a unicorn. It was green and red and swollen, almost as long as a finger. That was when his cultivation was shaken off by the sound wave. Before he could gather his energy, he was hit by a rock. "Don't play like this next time. You'll really die," King of Hell Chu said meaningfully. Chu Lere held a wet towel and massaged the horn on her elder brother's head. "It's so strange. It's soft and tough. It's bulging inside." Chu Lere simply treated it as a game. Chu Yang breathed in miserably. While enduring his sister's torturous massage, he secretly channeled his energy to reduce the big bump on his head. Eh? Chu Lere was startled. "Why is it gone?" "Lere is really a divine doctor." Divine Dr. Chu sat up and praised. Lere massaged it for a while and the swelling actually went down. "Really?" Chu Lere immediately felt a sense of accomplishment as she narrowed her eyes happily. "Of course it's real." Chu Yang vowed, "If you don't believe me, you can touch it. It's gone, right? So I have this ability." Chu Lere revealed 2 small canine teeth. "Big brother, I'll treat your injuries the next time you get hurt." "Ah." Chu Yang was flabbergasted. Chu Lere rolled her eyes at him. "Do you really think I'm stupid? Teasing a silly little girl must give you a sense of accomplishment, right?" Chu Yang swallowed his anger and said, "No, it's not you who is stupid, it's me who is stupid. Indeed, I was foolish. I knew that my younger sister's IQ was monstrously high, yet I still used such a trick. Let's not even talk about looking for trouble." Just as he tidied himself up, Zi Xieching walked over. "Get up, I have something to ask you. If you have something to say, just say it here." Chu Yang laid on the ground and rolled his eyes. Now, he didn't like this peerless beauty of the continent. Zi Xieching glared at him and Chu Yang immediately turned his head away. Zi Xieching was so angry that she laughed. "What happened just now? What's the matter with you now? Just now, just now. Now, it's what you saw." Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Zi Xieching's expression became dangerous and her aura became oppressive. Chu Yang jumped up from the ground with a shua sound. His face was full of smiles. "Actually, it's like this, after all, the arm couldn't win against the thigh. One had to bow under the eaves. A few days ago, your cultivation was higher than yours." Zi Xieching paced around and said thoughtfully, "I was your sparring partner for so long before I helped you get even with him. Now, the tables have turned and it's your cultivation that's higher than yours, and it's much higher. Get over here." She was so focused on talking that when she turned around, she realized that Chu Yang was still at the same spot and couldn't help but stare at him. Young Master Chu ran over. He. "I'm here. Miss Z, what can I do for you? Do you want me to massage your shoulders and legs for you? And give you a massage at the same time?" Zi Xieching stared at him. She was so angry that she was speechless. No matter how old she was, She was still a pure and innocent girl. How could she let a man touch her casually? She even wanted to massage her shoulders and legs. Was that something that could be casually massaged? Do you think I'm your wife? You ate a heavy pill, right? Zi Sheqing asked lightly. Is it because of that thing below? Yes. Chu Yang thought. Why are you still asking when you already know? This heavy pill is indeed good stuff. Zi Sheqing pondered and stretched out a white and tender hand. Give me one, let me try it. Try it. Chu Yang was shocked by this sentence. This was a heavy pill, not an apple or a pear. How could it be casually tried? These words were said in such a casual manner. No more, just that one. Chu Yang spread out his hands. He wasn't lying or evading. He really didn't have any more. No more. Zi Sheqing stared at him. Here, your cultivation has improved, and you've become more daring. Come, I'll comprehend the power of the Tao state with you. Don't. Chu Yang's miserable cries were like a little white rabbit that had fallen into a bear's paw. He was protesting with all his might, but he still couldn't escape the fate of being trampled on. Then, there was, bang 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 bang. There was the sound of sandbags being hit. The four of them walked in the black blood forest. After that breakthrough, Chu Yang was drilled by Zi Sheqing for another 5 days. Only after he had completely stabilized his cultivation of a few sword emperors, did the four of them finally set off. Although Zi Sheqing said that she didn't care, before she left, she still watered the flowers and plants that she had planted. She led the water over so that the flowers and plants could freely absorb nutrients. Then, she walked a few rounds around the house that she had lived in for tens of thousands of years. She finally turned around and left. Along the way, her expression was very gloomy. With a female companion, Zi Sheqing naturally took care of Chu Le. Wei Wuyan and Chu Yang, the two big men, walked in front and talked loudly as they walked. It wasn't known what they were talking about, but the two big men laughed loudly together. Then, Chu Yang lowered his voice and said a few words. Then, the two men started to laugh tacitly. It was filled with a kind of meaning. We're all men. There are some things that you and I understand, and we all understand, eh? This made Zi Sheqing, who was at the back, laugh until she was furious. But she really couldn't bring herself to eavesdrop on their conversation. It wasn't that she was embarrassed, but that she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to resist slapping these two guys to death. Wei Wuyan's composure was already outstanding now. It was filled with the charm of don't be surprised, and the strange will be defeated. He was really numb from all the blows. Sometimes, when he thought about it, Wei Wuyan's face would be filled with tears. When they first started to travel together, this guy was only a 4th stage sword sovereign, right? After a few days, he automatically broke through to the 5th stage sword sovereign after chatting with his sister for a while, right? Then, after coming to this black blood forest and fighting a few times, he entered the Tao realm a few times. Within 3 days after breaking through to the 5th stage sword sovereign, he even broke through to the 7th stage sword sovereign, right? Then, he met Zi Sheqing, and within 7 days, he advanced from the 5th stage sword sovereign to the 1st stage sword sovereign, right? The most ridiculous thing was that a few days ago, this guy went to pick herbs, dug a hole in the ground, and advanced from the 1st stage sword sovereign to the 5th stage sword sovereign. Right. Damn it. Is this something that a human can do? Wei Wuyan recalled that when he was learning martial arts, from the martial king level, he had to fight hard all the way. At the fastest time, it took him more than half a year to advance by 1 level. From the 4th stage martial emperor to the 5th stage martial monarch, he used a total of 127 years' time. And looking at Chu Yang's speed, and he was just an ordinary martial emperor, an ordinary martial monarch. Chu Yang was a sword sovereign, from the 4th stage sword sovereign to the 5th stage sword sovereign. 20 days. If there was a piece of tofu in front of him, Wei Wuyan would have bumped his head into it long ago. It was much better to die from bumping into a piece of tofu than to be affected by this guy, but as these few days passed, especially the last few days, Wei Wuyan no longer felt affected. Breakthrough? Oh, isn't it just a breakthrough? This is very normal. Entering the Tao state? Oh, isn't it just entering the Tao state? This is very normal. What? Comparing me with him? Whoever compares me with him, I'll destroy your whole family. I can be affected, but I can't be compared. Grandma. Women are women. Not knowing what Wei Wuyan said, Chu Yang sighed with emotion. When two men were together, the topic was of course always about women. It was just that this sentence was a little loud. Not only did Zi Sheqing hear it, but Chu Le also heard it. Both of them couldn't help but perk up their ears. Yes, Wei Wuyan agreed with a sigh. Women can't be measured by common sense, they're unreasonable. Chu Yang was in high spirits, and he talked loudly. Even if she has power over the world, she's still a woman. Even if she seduces all living things, she's still a woman. Even if she's cold, ruthless, and decisive, she's still a woman. Even if her cultivation is the best in the world, she's still a woman. Zi Sheqing frowned as she listened to this emotional speech. Women are so sentimental and sad. When a tree falls, she'll cry. When the autumn wind blows, she'll cry. Even when a butterfly breaks its wings, she'll sigh for a long time. When parting, she'll be even more teary-eyed. Even when parting with a dog or a flower, she'll be melancholic for a long time. For example, Chu Yang's saliva flew everywhere as he spoke. He thought of his previous life when he was with Mo Qingwu. At that time, Mo Qingwu was extraordinarily sentimental. For example, what? A ghost-like voice asked from behind. The more Zi Sheqing listened, the more she felt that something was wrong. This guy is obviously talking about me. He's really got guts. As he quietly asked this question, his eyes were already filled with rage. Only then did Chu Yang realize that he had opened his mouth, and there were two women behind him. And these two women were existences that he couldn't afford to offend. He couldn't help but panic. Miss Zi, actually I'm not talking about you. Yes. Zi Sheqing kicked him out. I know you're not talking about me, but this has nothing to do with me wanting to beat you up. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.